Phil Sodden here, as well as Brian Maloche. They've been subpoenaed.
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Sodden are her client's parents. They've been contacted and told to come sit in the court unless and until the defense counsel or the prosecution chooses not to call them. So I can't predict when the trial is going to end for the prosecution.
Okay.
I can tell the court, no, we have a potential of 9 witnesses left.
Okay.
As the evidence comes in, we may decide to call all 9, or we may not decide, as we do in every single case, Judge.
Okay, so let's check in after lunch and about 3 or 4 o'clock. Right?
I would appreciate that. I am having a very difficult time because the prosecution is not extending professional courtesy to me to give me any information, and I'm dealing with my own witnesses. I'm in court doing this. I am a one-man show, and the very least that could happen is them telling me who's going to be called and who's not.
This happens in every trial. This happens in every trial. Yesterday, the first witness was 2 hours late, so that impacts things, right? So the weather impacted things. So I don't think that they are not obligated to tell you in what order and who is next, but I think that they have been extending a professional courtesy. I understand your difficulty, and we're gonna do our best. It's also hard to predict how long the witness will be. Some witnesses, and there are witnesses where you had no questions, which is great, right? But there are witnesses that you spent some time on. There are witnesses they spent a long time on. So it's hard to predict. We're gonna check in several times today. I'm not going to tell you your witness isn't in the hallway so you can't call them. I'm not going to do that.
I understand. I guess my fear is that if we get to a point where suddenly they have no witnesses, and I don't have witnesses here because I had no heads up, I don't want this court to be mad at me that we're wasting time. I am trying my absolute best. That's what I want the court to know.
This is the heads up. This is the heads up.
I am aware. I have sat where you are sitting and had to coordinate witnesses, and I know how difficult it is. I am aware. So I understand that. All right. So don't worry about that. We will check in several times today and see how it's going. I mean, things happen. Things happen. Witnesses are quicker than we thought, or take longer than we thought. So I obviously am very interested in keeping the trial moving, which is what we're going to do right now.
That's great, Judge.
Okay,
and we indicated let's just have defense counsel's witnesses ready to go, as we have, and
right. When? That's all I want to know. Like, what day?
I don't
even
think
a day.
they don't know. They
Okay.
don't know. It doesn't sound like it's going to be today.
Well, that was
If
my
they
big
have 9
concern.
witnesses.
Last night I was emailing them because I didn't know if they would get through today.
Okay, sometimes a witness is 10 minutes long.
I understand.
It might be today.
It's not your first rodeo, Miss Smith.
Which is why I've seen this unfold before. And when they said our case will be done by the end of the week, that's far, far sooner than we've ever expected, which is fine and great news.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to plan.
I understand. I've been there many, many, many times. So let's do it. Let's bring them in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. What does it look like? Because I'm not seeing it. Oh, all right. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. You may be seated. Thank you for your promptness. Prosecutor, who's next with us?
Lieutenant Sam Mars.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Could you step up and have a seat? And then will you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Sam Marsban, first name's S-A-M, last name M-A-R-Z-B-A-N.
Go ahead, prosecutor.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone. What did I miss?
Morning.
Can you tell the jury what your occupation is and how long you've been doing that?
I'm a detective lieutenant with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. It'll be 20 years in July.
And as a lieutenant in your capacity right now, what are your duties?
I'm the commander of the City of Pontiac Detective Bureau.
And what does the City of Pontiac Detective Bureau do? What sort of investigations?
We do investigations, everything from minor property offenses all the way up to homicides.
All right, and in your over 20 years of experience, how many homicide investigations have you taken part in?
Well over 100.
Okay. I want to take you to November 30th, 2020.
Defense bitches the prosecution for playing scheduled games? That seems about right.
At some point, were you informed that there was...
Something like, I didn't get enough notice. I didn't know what they were going to call. I didn't know who they're going to call. I'm not prepared. I didn't get enough notice. I don't know what questions asked. Something like that. Am I vaguely on point?
And there are other detectives gearing up, loading up in unmarked cars, and we went lights and sirens to Oxford High School.
Am I anywhere
And
close?
when you arrived, can you describe what you observed when you pulled into the complex?
So we pulled in. There was a heavy presence.
Close enough?
Outside
Great.
The building. So we moved around. We put our vehicles on the east side of the building, so there was some coverage there. And then we put our vests on, grabbed our rifles, and went in through the east side of the building.
It's nice when you don't even have to see it to know what's happening, right? It's like, I don't even need to see it anymore. I know what they're saying. Yeah.
Okay, and at that point when you entered the building, and you said you grabbed your gear, can you describe what that means?
A ballistic vest, rifle, handgun, and...
Good morning, by the way, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. As always, I'm Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in Texas, Virginia, before the U.S. Supreme Court. Hope you're having a great day. I've got my coffee.
Several casualties, both fatal and non-fatal.
Oh, I'm a one-man show? I did forget that. That's true. I forgot the cliche. Sorry. You're right. Well noted.
There was still, everything was so, there's so much information coming in, it wasn't clear yet at that point if there was another person involved or not.
So it wasn't clear whether there was one shooter or more than one shooter?
That information was evolving as we were basically getting ready to go in.
Okay. When you entered the building, did you ever make contact with Lieutenant Willis, who's sitting next to you?
Yes, after we were searching the building and we evacuated some students, I did make contact with Lieutenant Willis.
Okay, so backing up, what was the first thing you did when you entered the building?
The first thing we did is I had a team of probably 3 other detectives that were with me, and we conducted a systematic search, making sure there was no other...
Yeah, I saw your tweet. I saw your comment about the history teacher. Yeah, if that person wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to talk to them or anyone else.
Once we area safe,
So yeah, send me an email.
we brought those students
Have them
out
send me email.
so that they can be
Let me know.
taken to another location and be picked up by family. Once that was all done, we did that primary search of the entire school. That's when I went to the front office and I met with...
I think the defense attorney's being whiny.
Can you describe...
I think they're pretty good in their cross-examination, though. I stand by that.
Coming across a classroom where there are kids in it, how did you evacuate that classroom safely, and what were the difficulties?
I can believe multiple things at the same time, right? I can believe that their opening was kind of shit. I can believe that they're whiny, and I can also believe that their cross-examinations are pretty good.
Communicating, I was more in a supervisory role, trying to coordinate...
Complexity of thought.
Other teams that were searching the schools, but we wanted to make sure that there was a safe path, that we weren't going to bring them out into harm's way, so we made sure that whatever route out of the building that they had, there was police presence there.
Were there any other concerns evacuating kids other than their safety going through the hallways? Were you concerned about anything else?
Yes, obviously we didn't want them to be exposed to areas of the school that were a crime scene. The area that I had searched initially upon entry, there was no victims in the hallways.
Okay. What is it?
The defense attorney saying she wanted to off herself was sort of beyond the pale.
Where there are victims.
I wouldn't have minded her being beaten by the judge a little bit for that one, to be honest. That was beyond the pale.
The screen of law enforcement personnel shielding their view from seeing what occurred.
Okay. About how long did it take you to direct these primary and secondary searches?
I was only involved in the primary search. I would say it was probably about an hour.
Okay. And you said at some point you went and met up with Lieutenant Willis or the command?
Yes, I met with Lieutenant Willis and other investigators from the Special Investigations Unit.
And I think sometimes we get lost about, we assume people know things. Talk to me about the ranking system at the sheriff's office. Lieutenant's a pretty high rank, is that right?
Yes, it'd be a command officer.
Right, and then, so who's above a lieutenant?
A captain.
Okay, and did you have any captains in the building that day?
I believe Captain Hill was there.
Okay.
I could hear his voice on the radio.
All right, other than that, were there other lieutenants?
Lieutenant Willis, I think there've been some promotions since. I can't recall anyone else.
So what did you do when you were done with that? What was your responsibility? What were you assigned to, or what did you choose to do?
I was requested to identify two of the deceased victims that were in the hallway.
Okay. And you said you've been involved in a lot of homicide investigations.
Yes.
Did this feel different to you?
Yes, it was kind of surreal with it being in a school, a place where kids are supposed to be safe. Most of them are, in houses that I've been involved in, or streets or businesses, so it was different.
Okay. Can you describe what you did?
I met up with a school counselor, I believe, was Pamela Fine, and then Jim Rourke, who was a retired police officer and also school security. And we were tasked to identify two of the deceased victims.
And how did you do that, Lieutenant?
I went down to the south hallway where they were located.
Was that the 200 hallway?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
The first victim had a coat on her. They were covering basically her upper torso and her head. There was a backpack next to her. It wasn't on her. Deputy Freiberg was with me as well, and he looked through the backpack, found some school assignments.
And at some point, were you able to determine who that girl was on the floor?
Yes.
And who was it?
Hannah St. Juliana.
Okay. And what did you do?
We looked at the mobile phone that Jim O'Rourke had, and were able to identify her based on her school picture.
Okay. And what was the purpose of doing this?
So we could notify next of kin.
Okay. And what did you do next?
I went further east down that hallway.
Yeah, we try to keep the slow mode to a reasonable number. We only start with a 20-second slow mode to prevent spamming.
She was still wearing it?
She was.
And we'll only increase it as needed.
Did you see where her injury was?
She had a gunshot wound to the head.
And what did you do?
I went into that backpack. I found a wallet. I found a driver's license in that wallet with the name Madison Baldwin. I looked at the picture. I moved the coat off her head. She had blood and hair covering her face, so I ended up moving her hair out of her face to identify her from her driver's license.
Okay. Was anyone with you at the time?
Deputy Freiberg was with me. I believe Pam Fine was with me, and Jim Rourke, and there was other law enforcement personnel in the hallway.
Okay, thank you. What did you do next?
I went back to the front office after we identified the two, and then I was requested to prepare a search warrant for the shooter's residence.
Okay. At that point, what did you have anything that was obtained from the shooter?
In preparation for the affidavit for the search warrant, basically, so I can put the facts in to request the court grant me that court order.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant. I just want to back up. I need to ask that question first, which I think you knew. What was the purpose of the search warrants of the home?
To look for any more evidence related to the homicide investigation.
Okay. And is that something you normally do?
Yes.
All right. And I'm sorry I interrupted you. What did you, as a matter of protocol, did you look at anything that was obtained from the shooter?
I did.
What was that?
There was a couple things I looked at. I'm sorry, was your question specifically what was obtained from the shooter?
Yes, and why did you need to obtain those things?
I looked at the shooter's cell phone. It was a locked screen. However, on the phone when you could see that the messages had been received, so I could see what messages. I couldn't go into the phone, obviously, but there was messages displayed on the screen, and I could see what those text messages were and
Okay.
where they're from.
Were you the first person to look at that phone?
No.
Okay. Were you the first person to press the button so the screen would appear, if you know?
I don't even think I pressed any button. I don't know.
It's
If
okay.
you move the phone, sometimes when I pick up my personal phone, if I move it, the screen will light up and the lock screen will appear. So
Okay.
I can't recall if I pressed any buttons or not.
Okay. Where were you when you had the phone and it lit up?
I was in the front of the school by the administrative offices.
Okay. Is there anyone with you?
Yes.
Who was that?
Detective Anchor from the computer crime.
Okay. I'm going to put on the screen People's 343. I don't believe there's an objection, but I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, you said 343?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you got hired.
That's a shooter.
That's great. Or Mr. Robin got hired. That's great.
Capture of the shooter's phone.
We have no objection. Thank you.
343 is it?
Congratulations on the new job.
All right, Lieutenant, is that your hand?
Yes.
Okay. And what are we looking at?
This was the cell phone that was recovered from the shooter.
Okay. And we're going to try to magnify for a minute. The first message there, can you read what it says and who it's from?
The message is from Mom. It was sent 1 hour prior. It says, Ethan, don't do it. The second.
Hold on 1 moment. 1 hour prior to what exactly?
1 hour prior to whatever real time was, so 1 hour prior to 3:03 p.m. approximately.
Okay. Do you know when the shooting began?
12:51, I believe.
Okay. And how long was Ethan don't do it after the shooting began? How long, what was the time span between the shooting began and that text came in?
The exact time's not displayed on there. It's just the approximate of 1 hour, but I would say at least an hour after the shooting.
Okay, we have that in another exhibit. But, okay, and the next text, who's that from and what does it say?
It says, Dad, Ethan, call me now.
All right, and then the next text.
It's from a phone number that is not listed as a contact. And it says, did you get shot?
Okay. Is it, I don't want to ask a leading question. Were you able to tell from that screenshot what order those are in? Is the top one the most recent text, or is the bottom one the most recent text?
The top, the bottom would be the most recent.
Okay. And at that moment, it says, what is it, 47 minutes to go? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What, if anything, did you perceive when you looked at that phone? Did it cause any concern for you?
With the other information that I had, it provided knowledge that the senders of those text messages.
Objection, Your Honor, is to speculation of what Mrs. Crumbley's knowledge was. That would be speculation.
So, I don't think you got a chance to say, but
Okay, can you repeat the question?
yeah, but I just asked him to finish the answer because I don't think he's talking about her knowledge. Talk to me about what you said. You did a search warrant for the electronics included, correct?
Yes, I was
Okay.
referring to my knowledge.
That's what I know. I know that. I was trying to
Okay.
let you finish, but go ahead.
So it provided me with information that the sender of these text messages were aware of the
Your
service.
Honor, this is, again, the sender of the text messages was aware. He cannot testify to what the sender of text messages was aware of.
Fair point.
That's speculation.
Your Honor,
Fair
I'll
point.
move on.
I guess it is.
This is information that he is receiving in real time to perform his duties of an investigation. He doesn't. We're simply trying to establish why and what he did next.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think the jury gets it.
Okay.
And Your Honor, when I object, I would ask that the court consider the objection prior to Ms. McDonald's.
Sustained.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
One moment. I have a right to respond to an objection because that's
Move on.
the court rules are the court rules. I'm not going to ask the question before the court rules, but I do. Before the court rules on the objection.
Okay, but when she objected, you didn't respond to the objection.
I was trying to respond. I really
Okay.
was.
Okay.
I'm trying to explain to the court that this is what we're doing. So,
Okay. All right. Well, it's.
I'm not going
objection
to
and-
start asking questions without her ruling.
Okay.
Lieutenant.
Even the prosecution seems a little frazzled. I'm not really particularly impressed by either side's attorneys, to be honest. Nor particularly the judge in some ways. Although I don't mind the judge's activeness in some respects, but she could have more control. But yeah, I'm not really super impressed with either set of attorneys.
What concerned you about this, and what did you do next?
It concerned me because there was relevant information on electronic devices related to the shooting.
I don't mind the judge, just so I can clarify this point, I don't mind the judge asking questions to sort of cut to the chase. That doesn't bother me because, there's an objection and then they argue about it for a while and the judge is like, okay, I'm just going to solve this by asking the question myself. That part doesn't bother me, right? Rather than you squabble about it and, make you figure it out amongst yourselves, I'm just going to cut to the chase and ask the question so we can all move on with our lives. That part doesn't bother me. The part that does bother me is where she, just dilly-dallies around and lets the attorneys kind of walk over her and doesn't be like, as opposed to Judge Toll, who we were watching yesterday, State Supreme Court Justice. I prefer that style more. It's like, I've ruled, sit down, stop talking, let's move on. I prefer a little bit of a firmer hand in my judge. All right.
Had occurred. With that, I viewed the surveillance video from the school, and I also observed the firearm that was used in the shooting in preparation for the search warrant. So it helped me basically collect information that what we might be looking for in the home that we were seeking a search warrant for.
Okay. And do you know Special Agent Brandon from ATF?
I do.
Okay, he testified early in these proceedings. Was he present with you at the school and assist in any way?
I do remember seeing him in the school.
Okay. What did you do? Well, can you tell the jury what you requested in your affidavit for a search warrant and why?
What I requested was any and all evidence related to the homicide investigation, which included firearms, ammunition, firearms accessories like holsters or magazines, notes, receipts, electronic devices to include tablets, computers, cell phones, because we know that in these types of investigations, messages could be sent to other individuals that might be witnesses or be a part of that investigation in addition to plans. So I guess that's just it.
At that point, were you informed or did you observe anything in the shooter's backpack that was found in one of the bathrooms?
I did not look through his backpack.
Okay. So what did you do next?
I had to have my laptop, because I left quickly. I had to have my laptop brought to me to the school, and I sat there, I typed out a search warrant and swore to that search warrant from the school, and then once it was authorized, I let my detectives that had secured that residence, that the judge had signed the court order, and they can begin searching.
Did you speak to any of the students in the school that day?
I did.
Who did you speak to?
I believe his name was Keegan.
And can you tell the court why you spoke to Keegan and where he was during the shooting?
I spoke to him very briefly. He was, when I talked to him, he was in one of the counselor's offices, and in my role, I was in a supervisory role over the detective bureau, so I was trying to assist Lieutenant Willis, and I was directing my detectives basically to handle the interviews. And then I learned that Keegan had witnessed a homicide in the bathroom, and he was obviously very shaken up, and he was sitting in the counselor's office. Partly I didn't want him to be alone, so I directed Detective Stevens to stay with him and gather information from him.
And do you know that victim's name? You're talking about Justin Schilling, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you speak to Keegan because he had information that you needed about the shooter?
Yes, he did have information about the shooter as well.
Okay. Was that bathroom the site of the last student that was murdered?
Yes.
Okay. Did you direct or ask anybody to go to the house after you wrote the search warrant or while you were writing it?
While I was writing it, I asked them to go to the house.
Do you remember who you asked?
At that
or I
time,
guess you ordered.
several different detectives there at that time. Lieutenant Hicks was, before he was promoted, he was Sergeant Hicks, so he was my partner in the detective bureau. So I told him we need to get a team to go secure that house. I believe it was him, Detective Stoyak, and Detective Steele.
And what can you tell the jury what that means to secure the house?
Basically, it's a protective sweep. So your purpose isn't to search for evidence yet while you're waiting for that search warrant to be signed, but you want to make sure there is no one in that structure destroying any evidence before you can get that search warrant, because obviously it does take time to...
Yeah, cops usually get the search warrant in the U.S. That's right. Yeah, that's very typical. Cops usually get the search warrant in the U.S. So, yeah, the cops submit the request for the search warrant, and then that's I suppose it's the practice of law. I never really thought about it, but I suppose it is. But that's just the way we roll in the U.S. So, yeah, cops get search warrants in the U.S. Who knew? Yeah, I mean, so apparently in the UK, you need a solicitor to do that. In the U.S., not so much. All right, well, there you go. Difference of law. Okay, cool.
To draft the document and get the judge to authorize it. So it was basically preventive from allowing stuff to be destroyed or taken out of the house.
Prior to drafting the search warrant, did you watch any surveillance video?
I did.
Can you tell the jury what you viewed?
I watched.
Must be a county and state thing.
That south hallway.
Maybe it is. Maybe there's some states where that's not true. That could well be true.
Shows the shooter going into the back.
Yeah, that could well be true. Maybe there's some states where that's not true. Fair enough. We do have 50 states. It's a weird country sometimes.
The shooter began firing on students as he walked east down that hallway.
Were you able to determine what weapon was used?
Yes.
How did you determine that?
I mean, it's certainly not unheard of, even in places where the cop does it, that the prosecutor also does it. It's not unheard of for the prosecutor to file the search warrant or file the arrest warrant. But yeah, usually it's the police who do that in most jurisdictions. But if that's not true in some states, could well be. I always get constantly surprised. I'm not sure why I should be constantly surprised, because we have 50 states. They're essentially like 50 independent countries. It gets complicated. Welcome to federalism. But yeah, I always get surprised sometimes when states are like not the way I expect them to be. Yeah. So yeah.
The weapon, by the time I saw that weapon, it was already brought to the front of the school. Crime lab specialist Rachel Grace had it in her possession. It was collected in an evidence box, and it was a SIG 9mm handgun.
Okay. How long did it take for the search warrants to be signed and authorized by a judge?
Probably it was under an hour, I would say.
Okay. And what did you do once you obtained the search warrant?
I called, I can't remember which detective I called, but one of the detectives on scene, I told them that it had been authorized.
When you say on scene, you mean?
I'm sorry, on scene, at the house.
All right, and when you say the house, you're talking about 112 East Street in Oxford, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And just for the record, did you determine who lived there?
I did.
And who lived there?
The shooter lived there. James and Jennifer Crumbley lived there as well.
Had you met any of those three people before that day?
No.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to meet Jennifer Crumbley?
Yes.
Do you see her in the courtroom today?
I do. She's sitting at the defense table with glasses and a gray jacket on.
All right. May the record reflect he's properly identified the defendant.
The record will still reflect.
Do you remember about what time that you arrived on scene at the house?
I would say it was about 6:30 p.m.
Okay. What did you do?
The detectives there were already searching the residence. Checked on them, making sure that.
Okay, I want to back up because we can't assume. How did they know that the search warrant was authorized?
I called and told one of them.
Okay, and once you make that call, then you instruct them to start the search?
Yes.
Okay. How long do you think that they had been searching by the time you got there?
Maybe an hour.
Okay. What did you observe when you arrived? Was there anything going on outside, or was everybody inside?
Everybody was inside. I think there was uniformed cars outside as security.
Okay. Did you just have individuals from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, or were there other law enforcement agencies?
Brett Brandon from the ATF was there as well.
Okay. Special Agent Brandon?
Yes.
All right. Did you have an opportunity to interact with Jennifer Crumbley?
I did.
Can you tell the jury how that came to be?
They were not there when I first arrived. They ended up showing up, I would say, probably about 15 minutes later. Then by they, I mean James and Jennifer.
Did someone ask them to return to the home?
I believe so.
And do you know who that was?
I'm not 100% sure.
Did you ask that they return to the home?
I did not. I did not have.
I will. Marty in chat asks a great question. Why do prosecutors make a huge deal over identifying the defendant? I don't really know, except probably because they got burned once. And I've never had it happen to me, but I've definitely heard tell where the prosecutor actually fails to prove venue. It's unusual. It's super rare, but sometimes they do. Sometimes they fail to prove venue, and the defense lawyer notices. Venue is just, where did the crime happen? That's it. Where did this thing happen? And the prosecutor somehow manages to get through their entire case without ever once asking a witness, hey, where did the thing happen? Right? And so they talk all about the whatever it is, the robbery, or the robbery's at the store, right? Oh, yeah, it was at my convenience store, right? Wherever, blah, blah. But they never actually ask, hey, what city is your store in? What county is your store in? You know, what state is your store in? They never ask that question. And so I've occasionally heard tell where the prosecutor will get to the end, and the defense lawyer will move to dismiss because the prosecutor failed to prove venue. They never proved that the crime occurred in the jurisdiction. Yeah, so I think one of the reasons that some of the prosecutors do this is probably because they got burned once. And now they're just overly cautious. They want to make sure they ask every witness, okay, do you recognize the defendant? Okay, do you know where the crime happened? Just, yeah, or they've heard a horror story. Yeah, that's probably what's going on. Woof.
Contact with them prior.
Okay. Did you want them to return to the home?
Yes.
Why?
They had cell phones in their possession.
Okay. In a typical homicide case, do you seize the parents' phones?
If I determine that there's relevant information for the homicide investigation, yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury why you thought, I assume, were their phones, did you think they were relevant to the investigation?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury why?
Based on the information I learned at the school, I learned that a parent had been there earlier in the day with the shooter regarding drawings that were made on an assignment that were disturbing. Also, I had observed the shooter's phone that had messages that were related to the shooting.
And was there a particular message on that screenshot that made you want to search the phone?
Yes.
What was it?
Ethan, don't do it.
And who sent that text?
Mom,
Oh.
Jennifer Crumbley.
All right. Can you explain what happened when Jennifer and James Crumbley returned to the home?
The search was still ongoing by detectives, so I had them sit in the front living room when they came in. I explained to them the process. James had asked for an itemized list of the items that were taken out of the home, and I explained to them that we leave a copy of the search warrant, the court order authorizing what we were taking, and then we leave tabulations, basically a receipt, just documenting what items that we had taken. I instructed them that I did need both of their cell phones.
And then how did Jennifer react to that?
She was not happy about that.
Okay, when you say she wasn't happy, what do you mean? Describe what that means.
She did not want to give me her phone. She seemed irritated about it initially. She was not turning it over promptly.
Did she say, I'm not giving it to you?
Rich asks, if the prosecution thinks someone's guilty, why can't they tell the defense who they're going to call as witness and when? They're just under no particular obligation to. It's up to each lawyer to choose what witnesses to call and in what order. Anything beyond that is for the convenience of the court, for the court scheduling. So in the absence of the court saying, tell them by the day before, the court can order it because the court has the right to schedule. The court has the right to its own schedule. And the court also has the right to direct order of witnesses and stuff like that. Now, typically speaking, they're not going to do it, right? Because they want these parties to do it. But strictly speaking, they can. So, in the first instance, it's up to the parties. In the second instance, it's up to the judge. So, yeah, they don't have to unless the judge makes them. So, we've definitely seen cases like, by 5 p.m. each day, make sure to give them a list of who's going to testify the next day. The judge can do that, but in the absence of that, they are under no particular obligation. It's up to them to choose what order, and anything else is for the convenience of the court. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's just the law.
Or I don't want to give it to you, or
I'm going to try pausing, by the way, when I answer questions, because sometimes people get mad when I talk over the witness. So I'll try pausing when I answer questions. How's that hearsay? How's what hearsay? Hearsay is hearsay is any statement out of court offered for the truth of the statement. So anything anyone said out of court for the truth of that statement. That's just the definition of hearsay. Unless, of course, it's the party opponent, in which case it's not hearsay, but yeah. So anything the detective learned from anything else. So, like the text messages, strictly speaking, are hearsay. He doesn't know it to be true. How could he possibly know it to be true? He just knows what the text message says. People lie sometimes. So, yeah. Now, of course, you can offer the statement not for the truth of it, which is one of the typical exceptions, because it's only if offered for the truth. So, if I asked the detective what someone said, and someone said hearsay, I might say, well, I'm not offering it for the truth of what happened. I'm offering it to show what the detective did based on that statement. So, for example, an example might be the person said, so-and-so's been shot, right? So, okay, detective, what did you hear? Person X said, person Y had been shot. Objection, hearsay. I'm not offering it for the truth, the person Y has been shot. I'm offering to show what happened next. Overruled. Okay, based on that statement, what did you do next? Okay, then I went to go investigate it, and I found person Y had been shot. Great. Right? So there you go. I hope that helps.
did she say anything?
I don't remember the exact language, but I believe it was that she did not want to give it to me.
Okay. Then what happened?
I explained to her that it's part of the court order, part of the search warrant, and it was necessary that we collect the cell phone. That's when James interrupted and basically explained to her he's going to get that cell phone one way or another. Might as well just turn it over to him.
Yeah, there's like 18 hearsay exceptions. There's lots of them. Don't start going through a list. There are probably more here. Yeah, it's been said that if you can't find a hearsay exception, you're not trying very hard. Because there's about 18 of them. Don't start going through a list. Don't start going through a list. We'll be here a while.
And then she did turn it over.
And when you say she turned it over, what does that mean? She gave it to you?
She handed it to me.
Okay. And what did you do next?
she was concerned about having phone numbers for family members. I allowed her to, I took a sheet of paper and I allowed her to write down necessary phone numbers out of there, out of her phone, and then
I want to back up a bit. How did you get into the phone? Was
she
there a
gave me the
passcode?
password.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to make a clear record. Was it password protected?
I believe it was, yes.
Okay, and how did you get the password?
She provided the password to me.
And can you tell the jury what that exchange was like?
Again, she did not want to give the password. We have the capabilities, obviously, with our computer crimes unit. When we have a search warrant, we can bypass the security.
Did you explain that to her?
I believe I did.
Okay. And did you tell her that that's what you were going to do if she didn't give the password?
Yes.
Okay. So did she finally give it to you?
Yes.
All right. And then you said you allowed her to write down some things. What did she write down?
She wrote down some phone numbers and contacts out of her phone.
All right. And did you instruct the defendants to do anything after you seized their phones?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what that was?
I told them they needed to contact, and they needed to get. She was concerned about being able to call people, so I instructed her she could go get a replacement, basically a prepaid phone from a local store, and that it was important that we had that number, that she was to contact either myself or Sergeant Joe Bryan.
Did you ask her to do that in a timely way, or did you not mention when they should provide that?
I don't recall specific language, but I believe it was important that we had that number that night. I don't remember what my wording was, but I would say timely, yes.
Okay. Are you aware if they did provide those new phone numbers?
They did not provide it to me. I don't know if they provided it to Sergeant Bryan or not.
Okay. What is the protocol when you seize a phone and there's a search warrant to search the information on a phone?
First thing I do is I put it into airplane mode. That way it cannot be remotely wiped. So once we put it in airplane mode, basically again a preservation to prevent the destruction of the information on that phone.
Okay. The exchange about the seizing of the phones, what did you say in response to that resistance, if anything?
I believe I just explained it wasn't an option not to take the phone. It was a court order. I'm trying to be professional about it. We're going to take the phone, and I didn't want her to try and resist us taking the phone.
Was there any discussion about the students who were injured or killed in that school by the defendant?
Not by the defendant, no.
Did you say anything about that?
Yes.
What did you say?
I could tell she was kind of frustrated about the situation, the phone, things like that, and I explained to her.
Your objection to hearsay as to what this officer said.
His statements are what is your objection?
About what she said to
my
your client,
objection-
what you said to your client?
About what he said to my client. My client's statements are clearly not hearsay. I'm objecting to what he said to my client as hearsay.
He's the declarant. It's not an out of court statement. He's the actual person testifying. And additionally, this is giving context to the exchange at the house with the defendant.
Your Honor, there is no I said it exception to hearsay, so even though he's the declarant, there's no I said it exception where he
She's right.
can still testify to hearsay.
That's true.
Your Honor, I believe that his statements about what he did during the investigation, which I've elicited several times while he's been on the stand, are relevant to show what he did and why he did it.
Just because there have been things that I have not objected to doesn't mean that I couldn't have objected
Okay.
to. But
Okay.
I'm objecting
She's
at this
right.
point. It's not legally correct.
Okay, so I guess one question is whether they're being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
If they are, can I respond to that?
Yeah, well, let me back up a little bit. Mrs. Crumbley did not ask you a question about that, about
No.
what happened, if there are fatalities at the school.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
His statement to Mrs. Crumbley about what happened at the school is not being offered to prove what happened at the school. We've proven that 100 different ways, unfortunately. It's being offered to show what he did and the response of the defendant.
Yeah, I'm going to allow it. It's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, right?
Thank you. What did you say to the defendant?
I told her that there were several dead kids and kids that were shot in the school, and this was significant incidents and was already on the national news, and even the president had addressed it.
How did you know that?
From seeing the news cameras outside and speaking to other people on scene.
All right. Was Jennifer Crumbley crying?
No.
Was Jennifer Crumbley, what were her mannerisms or gestures at that point?
She seemed irritated and frustrated. I remember taking notes down, and she made a statement to me saying that lives were lost today and he's going to have to suffer. And I found that odd, the way she said it.
Why?
Because she was referring to a person that was her son. Again, I've been involved in multiple homicide investigations where I've talked to relatives and parents that their children had taken lives, and normally it was...
Your Honor, I'm objecting to the relevance of what other people have said. Obviously, her statement is allowed. The detective testified to what she said, but drawing conclusions about what she was thinking as she said it is speculation.
Response?
He's not drawing conclusions about what she was thinking. He's drawing conclusions about what he was thinking. He said he found it odd, and I'm asking him why. And I think in the course of this investigation, an officer's perceptions about the defendant's statements, and they're being odd compared to what he sees in over 100 different homicide investigations, are absolutely relevant. In addition, we are proving, our burden as the court instructed the jury is to prove gross negligence and what a person using ordinary care would have to do to prevent injury or death to somebody else. And her statements and how they compare to any person, reasonable, ordinary person, are definitely relevant.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I have to continue, I have to argue based on this argument. This detective, who is very experienced, has never investigated a mass shooting at a school. So he does not have awareness of how parents of mass shooters typically respond, because this is a first.
I don't think he said that. I think he has interviewed or had contact.
Good response,
with
counselor.
His children have killed people before. So to the extent that you're speculating about, you hadn't met her before this, right?
Correct, Judge.
So, okay, so you can't speculate about what she's thinking, how she's feeling, how she would normally respond. Okay, there's some people that, when someone falls, they laugh, which might seem inappropriate, but that's how that person is, right? But to the you can testify about your experience, why you.
He can sort of give his opinion. He is sort of an expert, and he can give an opinion based on his experience. I don't see any problem with that. Yeah, he's talked to a lot of different people. He knows how people interact. I thought her response was also very good. He doesn't have experience in this context, so I think both arguments are pretty good. Yeah.
I thought it was odd based on your experience in interacting with other parents who had children who had killed people.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. All right.
Can you continue with why you felt it was odd? Can you tell the jury?
Yes, the language of suffer struck me as odd. Most of my experience as well. Even.
I want to stop you. What do you mean suffer? Explain to me what you mean the language of suffer.
Said he's going to have to suffer.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Most of my experience as well. There's going to be consequences, or we understand the severity of the situation. That the choice of words "suffer" was odd to me.
Okay. All right. Nothing further.
Thank you. Detective, when you testified about giving Mrs. Crumbley the search warrant for the phone, It's fair to say, at least to your knowledge, Mrs. Crumbley has never had a search warrant to take her phone away from her, correct?
I don't have any knowledge of that.
And when she was expressing concerns to you about not having her cell phone, one of those concerns was that she would not have phone numbers to people on her contact list. Is that true?
Yes, that's why I allowed her to copy her contact list.
She also expressed concern that if she didn't have her phone, she would have no way to call people. I guess what I'm saying is that was the only phone of Mrs. Crumbley that you were taking with the search warrant, correct?
I'm sorry, you said that was the only phone?
You took one phone for Mrs. Crumbley.
Yes.
You don't believe she had other cell phones at that time.
I would not know if she did or not.
So when you were taking that cell phone, if that was her only phone, it would be fair to say she wouldn't have a phone to use after that.
Yes, that's why I suggested she go purchase another phone from a store that was open.
You suggested she go and purchase what some people refer to as burner phones or track phones.
A prepaid phone, yes.
So you can go to a store, buy a prepaid phone, and it'll have a different phone number, correct?
Yes.
And you advised the Crumbleys, in order to have phones, go ahead and buy these phones.
I suggested, yes, you should buy another phone and provide that number to us.
You did allow Mrs. Crumbley to sit down and write contact numbers out so that she could put them in whatever phone she bought?
Yes.
And you're aware that by that night, the Crumbleys did purchase track phones? And if you're not aware, just let me know.
I learned later in the investigation, but I wasn't involved in that part of it.
Okay, fair enough. Again, very quickly, you had never met with or had any dealings with Mrs. Crumbley?
That's correct.
You have never seen her react to anything in life, a pet dying, a person dying, bad news about a job, anything like that?
My only encounter with her was at that house.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Good answers. Good questions.
So you can step.
Good questions. Good job.
Who's the next witness?
Short, clean, to the point. Short, clean, to the point. You don't have any interactions. You've never seen her before. You recommended getting the track phones. Great. Done. Love it. Good job.
David Hendrick.
David, I'm sorry, can you say the last? Hendrick?
Hendrick, yes, Judge. He's in the hallway.
I appreciate that she's apparently learned from her prior mistakes and perhaps prior commentary to not overly belabor a point. Although, to be fair to her, when she was belaboring that one point to death, it might have been for time management reasons. She wanted to run out the clock on the day, so there might have been counter considerations.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please.
All right, who are you?
State your name for the record and spell your first and last name.
David Hendrick, D-A-V-I-D-H-E-N-D-R-I-C-K.
Go ahead, prosecutor.
Thank you. Sir, are you currently a member with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
I am not.
Okay. And were you at one point?
I was.
How long did you work with the Sheriff's Office?
34 years.
Okay. And you recently retired?
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I would like to direct your attention to the days around November the 30th, 2021.
Okay.
When you retired, what was your rank?
Detective Sergeant,
In what unit were you assigned to?
the Fugitive Apprehension Team.
If you could, sir, please tell the jury what is the Fugitive Apprehension Team?
It is a team made up of a handful of sheriff's detectives that go out and look for people wanted for felony warrants. We either felony warrants that are issued by the Sheriff's Department or Sheriff's Department cases or other law enforcement agencies in the county that have requested our assistance in locating those individuals.
Okay. And as of November of 2021, how long have you been assigned to the Fugitive Apprehension Team?
4 years, I believe.
Okay. And did you retire out of that unit?
I did.
So all told, how long did you spend as a detective sergeant in the Fugitive Apprehension Team?
A little over 6.
6 years? Okay. Now, what roles did you have with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office before you were in the fugitive team?
Prior to that, I was assigned to our Special Investigations Unit for approximately 10 years.
And that's the unit that Lieutenant Willis heads up right now?
That is correct.
Okay. And what about before that?
Prior to that, I was assigned to our Auto Theft Unit for a period of time. All those as sergeants. I was also assigned into our Auto Theft Unit as a deputy prior to getting promoted to sergeant, and as a patrol investigator, which is a substation detective, prior to that.
Okay.
For a few years.
And then prior to that, were you on the road as a patrol deputy?
I was.
In your 6 years working with the fugitive apprehension team, could you put a number on how many fugitives you've sought?
Hundreds.
Okay.
Several hundred.
And that's probably a conservative number?
Yes.
Now, are you trained to locate someone who does not want to be found?
Yes.
Now, what are some things that a person might do if they don't want to be located?
Leave their residence. They often will stop communicating with family, friends, things of that nature.
Okay. What about funds?
Yes, a lot of times they will try to rely on cash.
Why is that?
I think it's harder to track any type of financial transaction if you're using cash.
Okay. Now, as a detective sergeant in the fugitive apprehension team, would it be fair to say that one of the first places you look for someone is at a home of a friend or family?
Yes.
Okay. So then would it be wise to not go somewhere where everybody knows who you are?
Sure.
Now, specifically to the days after the, well, first of all, do you recall the Oxford High School shooting on November the 30th of 2021?
I do.
Okay. And were you working at that point?
I was not working that day.
Okay. So you didn't respond to the shooting scene itself, would that be right?
That is correct.
But you were with the fugitive apprehension team then?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in the days after the shooting, were you asked to locate James and Jennifer Crumbley?
Yes.
And do you recall who tasked you with that assignment?
I believe Lieutenant Willis.
Okay. Tim Willis right here at the table?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall when you were given that assignment?
I believe, not 100% positive, I believe it was like 2nd of December.
Okay. So the shooting was Tuesday the 30th, Wednesday the 1st would be the following day, then Thursday the 2nd. You think around that day?
I believe it was that day.
Okay. Now, what information did you have at your disposal when you were tasked with this assignment?
We had their basic information and their address, things of that, vehicles that they go, things of that nature.
Okay. So, were you aware that their personal cell phones have been seized?
I believe we were, yes.
Okay. Were you aware that they had obtained track phones?
I don't recall if I was aware of that initially. I believe we were, yes.
Okay, that's fair. So, what's the first thing you do when what is the first thing you did when you were tasked with this assignment?
Assigned the different members of my team to go out and check addresses, start looking for vehicles, start checking local hotels, things of that nature.
Okay, so when you say check addresses, what sort of addresses?
Family addresses, friends,
Okay.
the home address.
Now, did you or a member of your team, were you able to uncover information that they stayed at a hotel November the 30th, 2021?
I believe so, but the specifics of what hotel I don't recall.
Okay, that's fair. You said you had the James and Jennifer's vehicles identified at that point.
Correct.
Okay, were you made aware that a vehicle was located?
Yes.
Tell me about that, please.
That vehicle was located in the city of Auburn Hills
Where at in the city of Auburn Hills?
at an extended stay hotel.
Okay. And do you recall which day it was located?
December 2nd.
Correct. And what did you...
I misspoke. December 3rd.
Okay,
Located
December
in
3rd.
the afternoon of December 3rd.
Okay. So when you received that information, what did you do?
I had everybody respond to that area to set up surveillance on that vehicle, checked the hotel to see if they were still registered guests there.
Okay, and did you come to find out that they had been registered guests, but they left that morning?
Yes, I'm not sure the exact date they left, but it very well could have been.
Okay. It's fair to say that they left, and they left that vehicle there. Is that correct? Okay. So did you have a team member sitting on that vehicle conducting surveillance?
Yes.
All right. Did they ever return to retrieve that vehicle?
No.
And do you recall the type of vehicle that was?
I do not.
If I said Kia, does that sound right to you?
That does sound right.
Okay. At that point in time, well, by that point in time, were you aware that they had obtained the track phones?
Yes.
Okay. Did you learn at that point in time that they had obtained another set of phones as well?
I don't believe I knew that.
Okay. So that would be new information to you.
Yes.
Now, at the time the Kia was found, you said it was the afternoon of December the 3rd. That would have been a Friday. You had detectives conducting surveillance?
Correct.
Okay. And tell us what happened next, please.
Well, we sat and watched the vehicle all afternoon and all evening,
Of Friday the 3rd?
Friday the 3rd.
Okay.
And it was later in the evening of Friday the 3rd that I was made aware that their other vehicle had been located
And where was that located?
in the city of Detroit.
Okay. Now, prior to discovering that their other vehicle was located in the city of Detroit, were you aware that James and Jennifer Crumbley had been formally charged at noon on Friday the 3rd?
I was.
Okay. And what did you do with that information?
At that point, myself and one of the other detectives went to what we learned is their attorney's office and attempted to locate the vehicle that we had not found yet. And I spoke to their attorney.
Okay. And why did you do that?
Well, I wanted to make sure that she was aware that a warrant had been issued and introduce myself as the person that was looking for them and try to broker a safe, event-free surrender.
Okay. And were you able to do that?
I was not.
Did the defendant or her husband ever show up at that office?
Not the time we were there, no.
Okay. And that was Friday, December the 3rd. Do you recall approximately what time you went there?
Midday, noonish,
Okay.
around shortly after noon.
And how long was that meeting at Jennifer Crumbley's attorney's office?
10 minutes. We weren't there very long.
All right. What happened next?
We continued to do surveillance in the area in the event that they did show up back at the office. And then once the car was located, we responded to the first car being located.
Okay.
Extended stay.
So I take it the fugitive apprehension team doesn't just sit and wait when somebody doesn't show up at their attorney's office. So were other steps being taken?
Yes.
Tell me about that, please.
I had several other members of the team checking different addresses, checking hotels, all the things that we would normally do, continually looking.
Okay. And were you working with other law enforcement agencies at this point in time?
There were other law enforcement agencies that were offering their help, and they were actively looking in their areas as well.
Okay. And what agencies were those?
I believe the U.S. Marshals, the Border Patrol. I have received calls from the ATF. I know I believe the state police were looking, the Detroit police were looking. Everybody in the general area was looking for the vehicle that was still unaccounted for.
Okay. And is that something that typically happens in a fugitive situation?
Depends on the case. One of this magnitude, yes, that information would have been put out as a be on the lookout for that vehicle.
Okay. So as the detective sergeant in the fugitive team, you were the one fielding these offers for assistance?
Yes.
Okay. So Sir, at this point in time, you have been tasked with this assignment by Lieutenant Willis. Is that correct?
Correct.
So who do you apprise of progress in a fugitive situation?
In this particular case, I was apprising Lieutenant Willis and also Under Sheriff McCabe,
Okay.
who was calling me for regular updates.
And that's wholly a law enforcement function. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay, as in the sheriff's office, or if the Border Patrol or FBI or ATF were working with you?
Yes.
Now, after you had the detective sitting in Auburn Hills, and after you had been conducting surveillance at Jennifer Crumbley's attorney's office, do you recall what city that was?
Bloomfield Township, I believe.
Okay. What you said you were notified of the vehicle being found in Detroit.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall the approximate time that occurred?
I think it was close to 11 p.m., maybe shortly before 11 p.m.
Okay. And if I told you that the charges were formally read on noon on Friday the 3rd, would that sound correct?
Yes.
So tell me what happened when you received that information that another vehicle of the Crumbleys was located in Detroit.
At that point, I instructed one of my detectives to maintain contact with the vehicle that we had found earlier in the day, and then I pulled everybody else, and we headed toward the address in Detroit.
Okay. When you say everybody else, were people doing different things in different locations?
Yes, I mean, several of the guys were right there on the car because that was the one thing that we knew we had. So
Okay.
they were sitting there. So yes, I pulled everybody off of that location and any other task that they were doing to head to Detroit.
Okay. What other tasks were other detectives doing if they weren't conducting surveillance?
Just searching records, looking for anything they could find that might lead us somewhere.
Okay. How many members, if you can tell us approximately, are in the fugitive apprehension team?
At that time, I believe we had 7.
Okay. And were all 7 detectives assigned to this task?
Yes.
All right. Did you learn the address of the building where that second vehicle was found?
I did.
Okay. They said 1111 Bellevue Street in Detroit. Does that sound right to you?
That sounds correct.
Give us an idea of where that is in the city of Detroit.
It would be, I guess, on the east side of Detroit near Belle Isle, just a couple blocks in from Jefferson there, which is the main drag that runs along there.
Okay, so close. So we're oriented near the Detroit River?
Yes.
Okay. And what's at that location?
That is an industrial building that it was multiple floors and had multiple different suites or rooms in it.
Okay. Tell me your observation when you arrived at that location.
When we first arrived, the Detroit Police Department was there. They had the vehicle blocked off so nobody could get in or out of the parking lot. It was the only vehicle I recall being in the parking lot. And there were several Detroit officers on scene at that point.
And when you say several officers, are we talking about 5 or 6, or are we talking about more of that?
More than that.
Give us an idea of how many officers were on scene.
At that particular point, when we arrived there was probably 15, 20.
Okay. And did additional law enforcement personnel arrive as the night wore on?
They did.
Okay. And all told, could you give us an idea of how many police or federal agents were there on scene?
I'm guessing by the end of the night, there were probably around 100, I'm
Okay.
guessing.
And we say the end of the night, did the night end with the apprehension of the defendant?
It did as far as my team was concerned,
Okay.
yes.
So by that point in time, there were over 100 law enforcement personnel on scene.
I would estimate.
All right. So you said you recalled being notified that the second vehicle was located in Detroit around 11 p.m. on Friday the 3rd?
I believe shortly before 11, but around 11.
Okay. Do you recall about what time you arrived there?
We got down there pretty quick that hour of night, probably 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. And so we're talking about 11:10, 11:15-ish, and I don't want to guess, so just tell me if that sounds right.
Or a little bit earlier.
Or a little bit early, okay. And there were already about 15 or so, at least, officers on scene?
Yes.
All right. So, once you arrived on scene, did you coordinate with other officers?
Yes, I talked to whoever was in charge, the sergeant or the lieutenant, I'm not sure what his rank was, of the
Okay.
Detroit Police Department that was there.
And then was a plan formed to search that industrial building?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
As more officers arrived, we were able to gain access to the building, and we kind of formulated a plan that several of us would search the second and I believe third floor of the building, and the Detroit Police Department was going to search, their SWAT team was going to search the first floor.
Okay. And sir, you've been a part of searches for fugitives in buildings in the past, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, give us an idea of what that looks like.
It's a very slow, methodical process. You slowly approach every door. You do your best to make sure that obviously no one gets hurt inside or outside. You make entry in, and then you search every place inside of the room you're in that could possibly hold an individual.
Okay. Is this a quiet endeavor or is noise made?
It can be quite noisy.
Okay. And it's quite noisy the night of December the 3rd, 2021?
Yes, it was very noisy.
So you had, I think you said 7 detectives at your disposal in your particular team?
Yes.
Okay. And there were other teams conducting searches at the same time?
Yes.
So each team was searching different areas of the building, would that be right?
Yes, we searched. Each team kind of was responsible for a certain floor of the building.
Okay. And were there police vehicles on the perimeter of this building?
Yes.
Okay. Could you give us an idea of how many police vehicles you saw?
Dozens.
Now, sir, did you subsequently learn that an acquaintance of the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley, had a studio in that industrial building?
I learned that at some point, yes.
Okay. So you weren't involved in the actual apprehension of the defendant or her husband, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And tell us, if you know, how the apprehension occurred.
I believe that when the Detroit Police SWAT team searched that room, they were located inside of that room.
Okay. And do you recall the time that occurred where they were found?
Approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, I would think.
Okay, so that'd be Saturday, December the 4th?
Yes.
After they were apprehended, were they turned over to you?
Yes.
Okay, and then what happened?
Myself, and 2 other officers transported them directly back to the sheriff's office. They were in each of their vehicles, and I was following.
Okay, and just so the record is clear, do you see Jennifer Crumbley in court today?
I do.
Can you please point her, describe something she's wearing today?
It's great. Blazer.
With record reflect identification of defendant.
Record will reflect the accredited identification of the defendant.
I have nothing further.
Cross.
Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, good morning. You have obviously a lot of experience with law enforcement, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
In addition to your position where you're tasked with tracking down fugitives, you also have additional experience as a police officer who has arrested people in the past, correct?
Yes.
And there are different ways that a person accused of a crime can come into custody of the sheriff's department. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, so if you see a crime take place, you can immediately go and arrest that person upon seeing a crime take place.
Yes.
You have the ability to go to the court, present facts, and ask the court to sign an arrest warrant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, if an arrest warrant is issued and outstanding, if a police officer were to pull someone over for a traffic stop that had a warrant, they could be taken into custody at that point.
Yes.
And that has happened before, where during a routine traffic stop, you see, oh my gosh, this person has a warrant, yes?
Yes.
It's also possible when warrants are issued that there are arrangements, and you're not a part of this. The defense attorney and the prosecutor can make arrangements for the defendant to turn themselves in to the court.
I can't speak to arrangements that would be made between the attorneys.
It's possible, though, for arrangements to be made that you're not a part of making, correct?
Yeah, I would have possibly, yes.
There are people who, when they have an outstanding arrest warrant, show up to the court to get what's called arraigned on the warrant.
Yes.
Now, you testified, and I think at one point you said you were sort of watching the vehicle, the Kia, on December 2nd. Was that incorrect, or was it December 3rd?
It was December 3rd.
Okay, so on December 3rd, you began watching the Kia that was in the hotel parking lot at what time?
Midday. I don't recall the exact time.
So you began watching the vehicle, the Kia, midday, and you never saw either of the Crumbleys return to that Kia, correct?
Correct.
It was midday on the 3rd that the prosecutor's office announced there was a warrant out for Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley.
Correct.
And on that day, you did not speak with Mr. or Mrs. Crumbley. They did not make any statements to you, correct?
Correct.
You testified that you stopped by an attorney's office. It's fair to say that was my office.
That's correct.
And we met very briefly, actually, in the hallway of my office.
Correct.
And during that meeting, I told you I am trying to make arrangements for my client with the prosecutor.
Judge, I have to object. Counsel can't be a lawyer and a witness. The court has talked
Who's the
about this
effective
through
listener?
March of 2022.
Correct.
We have a
I'll
waiver
withdraw. I'm
right
sorry.
on point.
I'll withdraw the question. If there were any arrangements being made between a lawyer and the prosecutor, you're not aware of those arrangements, correct?
Correct.
Do you pay attention if the lawyer files an appearance with the court, letting the court know Mrs. Crumbley has a lawyer?
Not typically, no.
So you would not be aware if Mrs. Crumbley had officially hired a lawyer, and they filed an appearance saying, I'm representing Mrs. Crumbley.
Normally, no.
So that night, you testified that ultimately you ended up over in Detroit where the other vehicle of Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley was found.
Correct.
Now, when the other vehicle of Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley was found, you have no idea how that vehicle got to Detroit.
Correct.
You have no idea if Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley rode in the car together or if one of them drove that vehicle there.
Correct.
You also have no idea why they may have left a vehicle at the hotel in Auburn Hills, correct?
Correct.
And knowing that they stayed at a hotel in Auburn Hills, we can agree that Auburn Hills is close to this courthouse.
Correct.
Auburn Hills is located in between, essentially, this courthouse and Oxford. Is that a fair statement? And I don't know the geography real well, even though I live there.
You could say that.
Okay, so we know that one of their vehicles is local in Auburn Hills, correct?
Correct.
And the location in Detroit is less than an hour from here.
Correct.
Now, when you went to that building where Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley were ultimately found, that building you described as an industrial building, correct?
Yes.
You testified that there are multiple suites within the building.
Yes.
And it's fair to say there are several businesses that operate out of that building.
Yes.
It is not an abandoned building.
No.
It is not an abandoned warehouse.
No.
So if there were ever comments made that Mrs. Crumbley was found in an abandoned warehouse, that was simply incorrect.
It was not an abandoned warehouse.
Correct. Your testimony was that at approximately 1 o'clock a.m. on the 4th, so later that night, that was specifically when Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley were located in that building, correct?
Correct.
And to your knowledge, they were found in an art studio where a business had an operating art studio.
I'm not sure what actually was in the studio. I never actually entered the studio.
The portion of the building that Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley were in was not some abandoned barred up area of the building that was vacant.
Correct.
So there was a business or something going on in that studio. I just want to make it clear that it wasn't something that was abandoned, where no one was going or using over time prior to that day.
But I don't know what took place in that studio. I never entered that studio, but I do not believe it was an abandoned studio.
So they were ultimately apprehended around 1 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
And do you have knowledge, and if you're not the right witness, please let me know, of what Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley were doing when they were apprehended at 1 o'clock in the morning?
I have no idea. I was
Thank
not
you.
in the room.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sir, the fugitive apprehension team, your function is to find the fugitive. Would that be right?
That's correct.
Okay. And this is a law enforcement function.
Yes.
Okay. And you were given your directives by Lieutenant Tim Willis of the Special Investigative Unit.
Yes, sir.
He's the officer in charge of this investigation.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the rooms that you cleared, they weren't homes, apartments, or lofts, correct?
No.
Amber Ann, as to why the defense attorney asked the same question multiple times, part of the reason is because juries sometimes have a nasty tendency of not hearing it the first time. And I don't completely blame her for making sure the point gets through. And Barnes was telling a story, I'm pretty sure it was Robert Barnes who was telling a story about one time at trial, he had said something that was important to his case. I forget what number he said, but he said it something like 30 times, right? That was important to his case. And it didn't go the way he wanted. And after, it didn't go the way he wanted, he interviewed one of the jurors. And the juror said, well, we really wish you had said this thing. And it was the thing he had said 30 times. So despite the fact he had said it 30 times, apparently this juror never heard it, and I believe it. Now, of course, Robert Barnes might be slightly exaggerating for the point of hyperbole, but the fundamental point is correct, right? It's, you want to repeat it to try to make sure the jury heard it. So I don't object. There is a point where it gets too tiresome. It's a point where it gets too repetitive, but I thought you stayed within the bounds. I'm good. Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, you may step down in your excuse.
Brenda, can we have a quick bathroom break?
Sure. About 10 minutes. Okay.
All right, for the jury.
I think we're back caught up live. We are back caught up live. Great. So not too bad. We caught back up live from all our pauses. So sweet. All right. How y'all doing? So they go on the run, unclear. Right, unclear. If they went on the run. And he wouldn't know that. So she didn't ask those questions. Because he wouldn't know whether they went on the run or not. In any sense. He wouldn't know. So she didn't ask because he wouldn't know. And she wouldn't get the right answer anyway. From him. This witness apprehended the Crumbleys. They were found apparently in some sort of art studio. The idea being that they were fleeing, which would show consciousness of guilt. That's the principle. All right. So whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. I want to make a record. It's all right. Not so bad so far. Thank you for the 500 of you currently tuning in. Just a friendly reminder for those of you who are tuning in. First of all, if you have Amazon Prime, just a friendly reminder that you can subscribe over on Twitch for free. The subscribe option on Twitch is paid, but you don't give me money. I get money, but you don't pay me. Jeff Bezos pays me. It's great. So all you have to do is link your Amazon Prime to your Twitch and hit that subscribe button on Twitch. And then I get money from Jeff Bezos, which makes everyone's lives better. Now, you do have to renew it manually every month, which is slightly annoying. So please set yourself a Google Calendar entry or similar to remind yourself to subscribe every month. But you get to give me money without it costing you anything. Just simply link your Amazon Prime to your Twitch and subscribe today. And if you need help figuring out how to do that, Tony or Ahmad will be more than happy to help you out. Or you can just hit the command !Twitch, which should hopefully give you the instructions that you need. Yeah. And also just a friendly reminder, of course, you can join here on Uncivil Law for just 99 cents a month. It's true. It is literally the cheapest price in town. I literally cannot charge you any less. A cup of coffee is like $3 these days minimum. So for less than a third of the price of one cup of coffee, you can help support an Uncivil for an entire month. What a deal. What do you get for your 99 cents? Well, you get the cool little icon by your name showing you're a member. You get to bypass timeout restrictions on the chat. That's nice, especially as we have more people. You get to comment more often. That's nice. You get access to member-only content such as gaming streams, my rating of Star Trek, which is still continuing. You get access to emojis. That's fun. And you get that feeling of support that you help support an Uncivil so that he can eat. I appreciate your continued financial support. Thank you very much. Please hit that beautiful, beautiful join button. And we do appreciate everyone who helps support the channel. This is my full-time gig. I appreciate that you are doing this. I am definitely selling myself for 99 cents. Yes, I'm a cheap hoe, but I'm comfortable with my lot in life. I will hoe for you for 99 cents by giving you hot legal content. All the hottest legal content, baby. Nothing else for you. You know me. Yeah. Yeah. I'll give it to you so many different ways, baby. I'll give it to you civil. I'll give it to you criminal. I'll give it to you constitutional. You want that writ of mandamus? Oh, baby, speak to me. Talk to me. Yeah. All that good stuff. I'm a private dancer, dancer for money. Do what you want me to do. Yeah, good times. The move plans are finalized, basically. Although I still have to finalize my utilities and internet subscription, and I keep forgetting to do it. So I probably should do it at some point today while I'm on it. But yeah, it's going fine. I have the moving date set. I have the truck set. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, so I only need 2 days to pack. So no packing efforts made so far. But yeah, we're well on our way, and in less than a month we will be in the new digs in Houston, and hopefully we won't be down too long as I get everything set up for the channel. So we might be down for a couple days there as we get things set up, but we'll see what we can do. I'm moving to Houston, by the way, for those of you who don't know, moving from Austin to Houston, Texas. The reason being principally that my friend Nate the lawyer, who I'm very good friends with, moved to Houston from New York City recently. And so I was like, well, why not move to be closer to Nate the lawyer so we can have adventures together? Plus, Attorney Tom is also from Houston. So that presents synergy opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise. Or at least that's the theory. We'll see what happens in practice. If it all goes to shit, then I only have a 15-month lease and I can say, screw you guys, I'm going somewhere else. I really have no downside. There's no downside to doing it. Also, I'm saving a little bit of money. It's nice. I'm actually getting 200 square feet more on my apartment. Well, 150 square feet more. I'm getting 150 square feet more on my apartment for $200 less a month. So that's nice. So, you know, hey, why not? That's good stuff. It's one of the nice things about renting, right? When your lease runs out, you can be like, I'm good, I'm gone. Donna Buchanan gives 10 gift memberships. Thank you very much, Donna, for your support. All your support is endlessly appreciated. Thank you. Nate will wear a dog furry outfit with floppy ears. He might under the right situations. You're my dog, Nate. I know, Kurt. No, I meant that literally. What? Yeah, it could happen. You all should start a content house, dude. Don't. You don't have to convince me. I'm in for content house. You do not have to convince me. I'm not sure which of my other creators you could convince to live in content house, but I'm definitely there. We can do the drama. It'll be a reality series. It'll be great. They can yell at me for not keeping this kitchen sink clean. I can yell at them for being too loud. I'm totally in for content house. I'm not sure how many of these other creators are in for it, but I'm in for content house. It could be fun. / disastrous. Any recommendations for Nate's video? His soccer videos were really good. That's where he really blew up on women's soccer. But he does really good content. He earned about 8 times more than I did last year, so I might have to switch more to his format. Because Nate's got a format down that's really working for him and bringing in revenue, and, that's good. So it's like, well, I'd like to, not be so on the margins. My income is very, very low compared to what I used to make. But it's very interesting how your lifestyle adopts to your income, or at least it does in my case, because I've lived rich and I've lived poor. And I don't have as much a hard time going backwards, it seems. When I got my apartment in Akron, where I went to law school, we've talked about that place, man. It was such a hellhole. Plus, I lived with a murderer. We've told that story before. That was fun. So yeah, I lived in this derelict house, which was really scary. Plus, it had a murderer in my first year of law school. Yeah. So I've lived in many different lifestyles, so I don't really have a problem going backwards. And it's interesting because even though I made 4 times as much as I'm making now in my old job, it's like I don't really feel like I'm worse off. And I also wonder to myself, where the hell all the money went? Because what did I spend the money on? Because I don't really have it. Where'd it go? So it's like, I mean, some of that I've been living off of, to be honest. I still have residual savings from my old job because I had about 6 months worth of income in my accounts when I left. And I still haven't depleted that because, I've been living more modestly. So even though I'm bringing in 1/4 as much and only had enough to sustain me for 6 months, a year and a half later, I'm still not deprived because I just lowered my cost of living. So, yeah. Yeah, where does it all go? Where did it all go to? The best I can figure out, it went to a lot of $15 cocktails. That's the best I can figure out. I mean, I was kind of living paycheck to paycheck before, too. It's funny how that works, right? Even though I was making 4 times as much money, I was sort of living paycheck to paycheck then, too. I mean, I had some in savings, obviously, but that savings was earned over the course of 15 years. So, yeah. The trial is on break, yes. The trial's on break. So we're just chatting as we're waiting. I wouldn't deprive you of trial time. Yeah, being unhappy at my job isn't worth the money. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I was getting to the point. I've discussed this a lot before, right? And so nothing new here, but I had been on a decline at my job for at least 5 years, if not more. And by the time I left, it got to the point where I was, really on the edge of something more catastrophic mentally. at least the probability of something more catastrophic, because I was sort of like checking myself and like, what is the probability of something catastrophic happening to me mentally? And the probability of something catastrophic happening to me mentally was getting higher than I wanted to. I didn't think it was more likely than not. I didn't think I was like over some threshold. But I was like, you know what? The probability is too high. I don't really want to roll these dice anymore because eventually the dice are going to come up not in my favor. So I got to go. And yeah, so I left. And I've been a lot happier for it. And I've enjoyed my 1.5-year sabbatical. It's been much better for my mental health. It doesn't feel that long, though. It doesn't feel like 1.5 years at all. The fact that I have no dependents also helps, by the way, incidentally. The fact that I don't have a wife and kids also made it a lot easier to leave, so I suppose that's a blessing. Although, if I did have a wife and kids, arguably, I would have found a different solution. So, you know, but the fact I didn't have a wife and kids made it much easier to walk away because I only had to support myself, so that was nice. And I'm not necessarily, and I want to go back into law, and I might even go back to law where I used to do, because I probably make even more money than I did. I could probably start at like 150 minimum, because patent law is hard, and patent lawyers get paid a lot. And even though I'm a little bit out of it, you know, 15 years of experience is still 15 years experience. So I can probably get 150, if not more, to start. If I want to go back, I would have to do a different kind of patent law. I'd have to do it from a different angle, though. Tony, help out Meenan on the Twitch thing.
Only people versus Jennifer Crumbley, case number 22279-990-FH.
Ready for the jury?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And apparently the way I say patent is weird, because every time I say it, people are like, I'm a patent lawyer. And they're like, what kind of lawyer? And I'm like, patent? I'm like, ah. So apparently I say it wrong, which is funny. I'm a patent lawyer. Say it wrong, I guess. I don't know, yeah. I've tried clipping YouTube's shorts. It hasn't been particularly helpful for me, but I've definitely tried it with my videos when I was editing stuff. When I say it feels like I dropped the N, I probably do. It's just funny that I mispronounce my own profession. What can you do, right? Eh. Process of converting a provisional into a full patent? Yeah. Use the same attorney? Not a bad idea. If I get Tucker's case, I'll be set with a few million. I doubt that very much, but okay. Yeah, the clip from Poot yesterday, yeah, that worked out great. It was interesting reading some of the comments because apparently some of my fellow lawyers disagree with me, which, you know, what can you do, right? But it's what I think, so yeah. I'm kind of happy in a lot of ways that I produced my thoughts without knowing what anyone else thought, so it didn't impact my own independent judgment.
Oh, yeah.
Do most of these witnesses have to testify at 3 trials? Probably. I did like the one YouTube comment, which was basically saying, well, once someone said, I've never heard it explained this way, thank you. And then someone replied to it, said, well, this is Kurt's theory. I'm like, yes, obviously it's my theory. I mean, duh. It's, you know? Yeah. The judge didn't ask about jury deliberations. Yeah, the judge never asked about jury deliberations. If you go back and listen to that stream, the judge never once asked about jury deliberations.
Good morning. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give you the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Where you can be seated. And then would you state the name and spell your first and last name?
Sure. His name is Luke Kirtley.
Hi, Luke.
Kirtley.
Nice beard, Luke. Who are you?
Is it Kirtley?
Kirtley.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to place on the record that Mr. Kirtley doesn't mean any disrespect. He has sensitivity to his eyes, so he's been given permission to have his to wear his hat.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the jury doesn't think he's being disrespectful. Okay. May I call you Luke?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Luke, can you tell the jury what your occupation is? What do you do for a living?
Sure. I own a company called Coffee House in Detroit, and so we manufacture and roast coffee and supply coffee to restaurants, hotels, and own a couple of cafes as well.
All right. And when did you start that business?
So I registered the business in about 2017, moved into Bellevue, I would say about 2 years after that. In our current spot, we were there since 2020.
Okay. Just briefly, what do you need space for in your business? What are you doing in your actual brick and mortar?
Sure. So as of current, we have two spaces in the building. One space is on the first floor, which is where we manufacture coffee. So we import it, we bring it in on trucks. We do all the roasting there, and packaging, everything like that. And our offices are down there as well. And then on the third floor, we just have storage.
All right. And the address of that building is what?
1111 Bellevue Street.
All right. How long have you been a tenant there?
So I've been in the current space since 2020. Maybe a year before that, I was in another space on the third floor.
All right. Are there any conditions in your lease about what you can do with that building in terms of what you can use it for?
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's general terms and conditions that you define within the lease. To my knowledge, what I've seen.
Can you have a business that has people residing there overnight?
No. At least in my specific lease, you're not allowed to sleep there at all.
All right. Can you describe to the jury, aside from the address, about where that building is in Detroit?
Sure. So it's generally when people ask me where my office is, I tell them it's right across from Belle Isle. Island in Detroit. We're about 2 blocks off of Jefferson, which is a pretty fairly main road. Jefferson and East Grand Boulevard. Specifically, this is Bellevue between Lafayette and St. Paul. Okay.
And about how many other tenants, if you know approximately, are in that building?
I would say in terms of leaseholders, maybe 10. Okay.
Is there anything else significant about that building with regard to storage? Is there parking?
So in general, where employees and tenants of the building are on the street, which is just free, open parking, and then there's 2 parking lots. There's north or south or east or west, but on one side of the building there's a parking lot which is gated. You have like a little clicker to get in, and then on the other side there's a strip of guest parking that they identify, and then the same thing, kind of like a remote sliding gate.
And so who has the fob or the remote to get into the parking lot?
Tenants.
Okay. Is there any indoor parking or garage?
So there are indoor garages. There's a couple different spots. There's one side of the building if we're looking at the front of the building on the left, there's essentially like an empty part of the building that hasn't been developed yet, that they store like a truck when they spread salt and whatnot. That sits in there. And then there's a main garage door, which tenants use actively to go in and out of for loading and unloading.
Okay.
And then on the first floor, there's an elevator that you can drive a car onto and go up and down through the floors.
Okay, and what would be the reason you need a car elevator?
So the building was for like car manufacturing in the 20s.
Okay.
It was there. It's the original elevator from when the building was built. But tenants like myself and a woodworking company on the second floor will use it to move cars up and down, load, unload, generally.
All right. So in addition to your coffee roasting business, you have another hobby. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And what is that? Tell the jury what it is.
Yeah. So I like to drive cars. So I cycle through, sell, buy cars just to enjoy. And so presumably where you're getting at is on the third floor. I put cars up there every now and then. We have one of the storage units as a garage door ourselves, so we can pull a car in there.
So at any given time, how many cars do you have personally?
2 or 3.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I want to take you back to November 30th of 2021. How many cars did you own at that time, if you can remember?
I believe 2. It might have been 3, but as far as I know, it wasn't that many.
All right. And did you have a reason, that was a Tuesday, did you work that day during the day?
Yes.
And about what time did you leave?
Not sure exactly. Being a business owner, I work really random hours, so sometimes late, sometimes early, but generally speaking, I get off around 6-ish.
Okay. Talk to me about activity. Have you been there at night past 10 o'clock before?
Yeah.
Apparently, we passed 128,000 sometime today, so that's nice. So we'll take a moment just to celebrate a little victory. We binged. Yay. 128,000. That's nice. Sweet. Woo! All right, back to the trial.
What's the building occupied around that time? Do you have people that are still in the building working?
Very rarely. So there's one tenant to my left, which is like a breed rare plants, to my knowledge. They are intermittently there late. It's not a pattern, I would say, if anything, so they're just kind of there. And then there's a vinyl sign company as well. The owner's often there late, but not, I wouldn't say he makes like a particular habit of being there at a certain time. But generally speaking, when I go there to like switch cars around or anything, it's empty.
Okay, let's back up. The switching car things. Explain to the jury what you...
So at the time, I lived down the street, more or less, less than a mile away. And where I would park my car, I found it as a liability to park one of the cars there, because it was like a nicer, lower mile car, because my other one had its mirror taken off on the street that I park on. So when I have what people refer to as like a daily driver, that's what I let sit at the building while I, went and enjoyed my other car.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I can't personally relate to that, but I understand.
when it was time to put it away, I went and got my worst car generally, and went to go park down on the street. And so I took the car.
You have a beater?
Yes, a beater. Exactly right. You should have seen the oil that came out of that thing. Anyways, so yeah, I had a beater, you could say. And then the other one was a little nicer, and I had plans to sell it, so I put it at the office to avoid, something like that happening.
Okay, so you decided to go take that car and basically switch cars.
That's correct.
And you did that at what time, if you remember?
Around 10 p.m., I would say.
Okay. Did you live with anybody at the time?
My girlfriend.
Okay.
So now fiance, is nice, but she's always like, "Oh, it's so late. Just leave it. It's fine." But I'm just always like obsessed. So I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm just gonna switch it really quick."
Because you didn't want anything to happen to it.
Correct.
Okay. So when you went to the building around 10 o'clock that night,
Mm-hmm.
what, if anything, did you know about Jennifer Crumbley?
So obviously I was relatively in tune with what had happened at the school. So I knew of that news. And I had heard through Facebook, I don't know what or who posted it, but it was some type of like poster, that was like, hey, this is like the car, this is like the situation, everything like that.
What was on the poster?
The car and the license plate, and presumably any photos or anything like that.
Okay, so I need you to kind of be specific when you
Yes.
say the car and photos. Were there any people pictured in the photos?
I believe so.
And do you know who that was?
Well, it was the two parents.
Okay, the Crumbleys.
Mhm.
All right. And then there were pictures of cars.
Yeah, there was a picture of, it was like a stock photo of a Kia, and it was a newer Kia that I'd never seen before. So I kind of remember that, and then there was a license plate as well.
Okay. What did the poster say? Were there any words?
Yeah, I mean, I assume it, years ago at the time, but I assume it would have said wanted, and then additional information about the whereabouts, anything like that. But
Okay.
just really, to my knowledge, like all I really remember is the car and the license plate.
Okay. All right. So tell the jury what happened as you approached the building. What's the first thing you did? You have to use the clicker?
Yeah, so I used the clicker, and I don't know how far you want me to go, but I used the clicker, pulled my car into the parking lot where I normally park my car, and then at the time I noticed a car was parked in the back corner of the lot, tucked away, but I didn't really pay any mind to it. We have cars, many tenants in the building with different cars, and employees leave cars every now and then. But I feel like I'm pretty in tune with who keeps their cars there and just generally observant. And so I saw the car, didn't really think much of it, went inside to my office, and then when I walked back out of the door, that's kind of when I was in line of sight of the front of the car, and that's when...
Okay, so the car was backed in, or was it parked front first?
No, so it was backed into the furthest corner of the lot.
Okay. Were there any other cars in the lot?
There may have been one car in there that wasn't my own, but I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if that's it, but I do know there's one car that generally sits there.
Was it the closest spot to the building, or the furthest away?
It was so if you're standing in the front of the building, it was the furthest spot you could park possible.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I said November 30th, and I apologize. It wasn't November 30th. I was asking, did you know what happened on November 30th?
Yes.
Okay. What was the day, though, that you went to the at 10 o'clock to switch the cars?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Whatever day.
Was it a Friday?
I'm not.
Okay. If I told you it was December 3rd, do you have reason to believe that was incorrect?
Anytime we want to establish why this guy is here as a witness would be fine, by the way. He owns cars and he switches cars around with cars he drives. Okay. And he owns a coffee shop. Well, more to the point, he manufactures coffee. And he has some money in the bank. What you think about that? Why are you here? Why are you here?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I remember it being very cold out.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keys, for reminding me of that. So you came back out and did you say you saw the car again?
Yeah, so when I opened the side door of the building and walked out, I was met more in the line of sight with the front of the car since it was back into the spot.
And what did you think, if anything?
Really, I just thought it looked a little familiar, and it rung a bell. It was the car that I saw on the poster.
How soon in time to the wanted poster, as you describe it, did you see that car?
It was the same day.
Okay. All right, so what did you do next?
So I saw the car, but obviously it was backed in, so I didn't see the plate, which I thought was peculiar, just because it was a newer car and I hadn't seen it before. So I pulled up on my phone the poster, I found it.
Hold on.
And
I think you're hearing people next door.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so you pulled up the poster on your phone.
So I found the poster, and I was doing this as I was walking to the car. And by the time I had the poster up, I turned my flashlight on and walked around the back of the car on the driver's side to the back, and then obviously put two and two together that was the plate that was on the poster.
So the license plate, did the license plate match what was on the poster?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then what happened?
And then so I looked over and saw somebody sitting next to the car on a curb. So there's like a general.
I don't understand why he matters, though. If he's the person who spotted the Crumbleys' car and called the police to be like, hey, I spot the Crumbleys' car, why do we care? We know where we found the Crumbleys. Why does it matter who found the car? Why does it matter? Why do we care? Okay, I hope it gets better, because I understand why he's here still.
Curb. Saw somebody sitting there.
On the driver's side?
On the passenger side, rear passenger side, there's like an elevated curb that you could sit on. It's probably 2 feet tall.
Okay.
And somebody was sitting there, put up in like a blue plaid hoodie, and I wasn't like,
Did you say anything?
I didn't say anything.
As you approach the car and it's facing you, correct, the front of it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see any figure on the passenger side wheel? Okay.
No. It was also dark.
Okay. Was there a line of sight? For instance, when you turned around and you, from the back of the passenger, could you see in front of you, or was there something obstructing that?
No, it was pretty clear, straight shot. As to whether or not we would have been able to make eye contact in theory, I'm not 100% positive, just based off of like the angle of where the door in the car is.
Would it be, if you were standing where that person was sitting, would you have been able to see somebody approaching the car?
If I was standing, then yes. If I was sitting, I'm not 100% positive.
Okay. So, did that figure in the hoodie move?
No.
Did that individual turn around and respond to your flashlight?
No.
Did that individual say anything?
No.
Did you notice anything else? Do you know what the individual was doing?
No.
Okay. What did you do next?
Turned my flashlight off and very calmly walked back into the building as if I didn't see anybody.
Why did you do that?
Because I assumed after connecting that it was the plate that it was somebody related to the incident.
Okay. And how are you feeling in that moment?
Quite tense. I remember specifically putting the plate 2 and 2 together. It's like that's a feeling you've never felt before.
Okay.
But so then I walked back into my office. And I locked all the doors. And then.
Were you afraid?
I would say so. Yeah, I wasn't aware of. I mean, it was a lot of emotions were going on at the time.
Okay. Is the building equipped with a CCTV?
As far as I know, they have cameras, and they've used them before. In other, there was a theft in that building once.
Okay, so are you aware where the cameras are placed?
Generally.
Okay.
There's one in the parking lot that we're talking about right now, and then there's a few in what I would consider like the main promenade of the building inside.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to view that footage in the night? That night?
No, I have not.
Okay. It is People's 344.
Is there a phone? Oh, he dropped his phone.
Okay.
Your Honor, the defense stipulates to the admission of 344.
Thank you. All right. You can see on your monitor there. We're gonna. What are we looking at?
Okay, so this is a camera from the rear of the building. I actually didn't know that we had a camera here.
Okay.
There's another camera, which in this there's that trash like kind of receptacle back there in the top right corner.
Okay.
There's another camera there.
All right. So, what's up on the right corner, top of the page? What is that?
That's like a dumpster.
Okay.
So it's like a removable dumpster.
And where, in relation to this photo, would the entrance or exit be?
Right to the left of it. So if you are looking generally, that is the gate to pull into.
Okay. So this is looking at the building.
This is on the building.
Okay.
The camera itself looking away from the building.
So that's where what we just pointed to is where you would enter the parking lot.
Correct.
Where the clicker.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the actual door is to the right here. Yeah, right over there.
Okay. Okay, for the record, Your Honor, the timestamp is 22 minutes off. It seems to be a running theme with all surveillance. So that would be, what time would, one moment, Your Honor.
Isn't this 10:56. It's not 10:56.
The stamp on the screen is 22 minutes fast than actual time.
Okay. We're going to establish the time of the 911 call, which might help put this in better perspective. At some point, you called 911, correct?
Yes.
Was it how long of a time period was it from seeing the individual and recognizing it was the same car to calling 911?
Maybe a minute or two.
Okay. So your call to 911 was around 10:43 that night.
Okay.
So
Why are we here? Who is this guy?
minutes before that,
Why do we
correct?
care?
Definitely. Yeah, I went right
What
to
is
the
his
house,
value?
called them immediately.
What are we trying to establish? What the hell is going on right now?
Okay. So I believe that's around 10:34 that this footage is from, but we can clear that up, and we're going to play that.
They stipulate to admissibility.
And who is that, if you know, Luke?
One of them, presumably.
One of who?
I'm not 100% positive.
That was the worst answer I ever heard in my life. One of who?
Is that your car at the top?
I believe so. That would make sense.
All right, well, we'll wait till
Yeah,
you're...
we'll wait until I pull it in and I'll definitely be able to know.
This testimony isn't going to go anywhere. If it was going to go somewhere, I think we would have had a clue by now. This is just going to be a massive waste of our time, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's the BMW that I have.
Okay.
Mhm.
And your spot, that parking spot, is that, how close to the entrance of the building is it?
I'm parked right next to the door.
Okay. And the place where you saw this Kia and we saw an individual walking towards the left, where would that car, we can't see it, but where would it be parked in relation to this screen?
So where is their car?
Yes.
In the bottom left, right there.
Okay. So at the top, do you see can you tell the jury what you're doing?
Going into the building, looks like.
Okay.
You can see me look over at the car too, right there for the first time. Also, just for the record, I don't know if this is my BMW or the Volkswagen, but I know I had those two at the time.
Okay, so you positively identified it as your BMW, and now it might be a Volkswagen. Okay.
And they both have roof racks, unfortunately.
Okay. When you enter the building, then do you have to go into another door to get to your unit?
Yeah, I have to go through just my main office door.
Okay, so can you tell the jury what you're doing right there?
So this is where I'm walking over to check that plate.
And what do you have in your hand?
My phone. I've never seen this too.
This is also one of them, whoever them is. Who's them?
And can you tell the jury what you're doing now?
Playing it cool, as they would say.
Okay. Playing it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you
Oh, that's him, supposed to be
Playing it
him?
cool. And what do you see there?
So this obviously I didn't know of or see at the time, but the person that I saw going into the building looks like
Almost right after you.
directly after, yeah.
Did you see that person when
I must have been in my unit at the time because I did not know anybody came into the building after me.
Okay. Did you know until now that happened?
I did know that I put it together that they got into the building somehow.
Okay. there's a car at the top entering the parking lot. How long did you stay in your unit?
Until they arrived, and then I came out of the front of the building.
Okay.
Which my door, the front door to my entrance is like right where they are, basically. Because this whole wall on the right side, all of those are, that's my whole unit.
Okay.
From basically, I would say the end of the other unit, you know, the artist's unit, all the way down to the corner of the building.
Okay, it might be a good time to talk about that. Do you know a person whose last name is Sikora?
Yes.
All right, how do you know him?
I know he's a tenant in the building.
Have you ever spent time talking to him? Are you friends?
No, we've waved to each other before.
Okay.
But more than that, nothing. I didn't know anything about him, and that was the extent of our relationship.
Okay, and did you ever, around this time, was there anything significant about the hallway on the first floor? Was there anything left there?
So tenants will leave things every now and then. At the time, there was in the central promenade, which is like generally where people pull in the elevator and whatnot, there was a mattress sitting there.
Can you describe the mattress?
It was a white mattress. I think it had like an orange stripe on it. Not positive, but I think it was a Tempur-Pedic as well.
Okay. Was that normal to have a mattress just hanging out in the promenade? Okay. How long was it there?
A few days, maybe a week. Could have been there longer. I know it was there long enough for somebody to put a note on it and to ask if it was like being thrown out, and if they could buy it or use it or something. But somebody put a note on it at some point.
All right. And when you walked back into the building that night, at some point did you notice that that mattress was no longer in that promenade area?
I probably didn't pay any particular mind to it, but it wasn't there.
The next day?
Yeah.
Did you notice that, or that night, or?
Well, I assume I could have noticed at the time, but I don't recall if I particularly remember if the mattress was there. Obviously, my mind was on something else at this point.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm going to play for you. At some point, you called 911. You
Yes.
said. Okay. I'm going to play for you the 911 call. You have listened to that before.
Yes.
Okay.
Why do we care?
45. I'm not sure if there's an objection.
Why do we care about the 911 call?
Admission of 345.
Thank you.
40 times submitted.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to play.
Call on Friday, December 3rd, 2021, 10:43 and 14 seconds p.m.
Detroit 911, what is the address of the emergency?
1111 Bellevue Street.
Repeat the address of verification.
1111 Bellevue Street.
What's the part across street?
Lafayette and Bellevue.
Tell me exactly what happened.
The people the parents of the shooter that are running away, they're here.
Sir, I'm not sure what you're referring to. You have to be more specific. Tell me exactly what happened at the location. What's going on now?
Okay, so the Oakland shooter, the kid, has the two parents that are on the run right now, and it says, Oakland County said, call if you see anything. And I just went to go park my car and switch it around at my office, and there was a Kia that looked like their car, and I walked around and checked their license plate, and it's their car, and the woman is here, next to the car.
The woman is where?
Sitting next to her car in the parking lot.
She's staying next to her vehicle on the ground or in another vehicle?
On the ground. On the ground.
Okay, what kind of vehicle is this, sir?
It's a 2021 Kia, the black Kia SUV, in the parking lot.
Was anyone inside of the vehicle?
I don't know.
You said that you walked around the vehicle and looked inside. You didn't.
I walked back to look at the license plate because I saw online that car was backing.
Do you have the plate number?
One second. It's DQG 5203.
Repeat that plate for me.
DQG 5203.
well, we're the units in that area, thank you.
Okay, I can't believe it. They're here.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to stay on, or am I?
No, sir, you're fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah, they're here. That's crazy. Like that. Those people are looking for me.
Okay, so they'll be there, sure, sir, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
What's up with this 911 operator? The 911 operator seems so confused, and the questions she's asking seem a little bit weird. And what's going on with the 911 operator? The parents of the kid who ran away are here. What are you talking about? The 911 operator doesn't know what they're... Okay, I don't know what's going on. 911 operator seems... Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Okay, so that is the 911 call,
Yeah.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And where were you when you made that call?
So I was sitting in the corner of my office, which at the time was a great spot because it was kind of hidden away. It was
So you
kind
were
of,
hiding?
more or less. I just I really didn't know what was going to go on, so I sat in the back corner where we kind of like inventory all of our green coffee, unroasted coffee, which shares a wall with the unit next door. So
The art studio?
yes.
Okay.
And at the time, that was the most secure spot, but obviously
Okay.
the next room over.
All right. Are there windows on your unit that look out to the parking lot on the first
Yeah,
floor?
many.
All right. Are there windows in the art studio that look out to the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. How soon after you made that call did you hear sounds of law enforcement?
Well, I saw the lights through the window, and that's when I came out. 5-ish minutes.
All right. How many cars approached?
It wasn't many. It was like 1 or 2.
All right. And what did you do?
I met them out there and basically gave them the lowdown. Said the car in the corner is the one, and then I let them into the building, and they went because you can only access. I didn't have my fob, obviously, that was sitting in, or the garage opener that was sitting in the car. So opened the door for them. Then they went out the side door, verified the plate, and then a lot more people showed up.
Okay. Talk to me. Tell a jury about that.
So maybe 5 minutes after they personally identified that was the car that they were looking for. I mean, it must have been 20 or 30 officers at that time.
Lights and sirens?
Oh yeah, don't know if the sirens were on particularly, but lights were on for sure. I mean, people came like locked and loaded. There were a lot of guns.
All right, locked and loaded, what does that mean to you? Can you describe that to me?
The officers who were inside of the building had, full-on rifles walking through the space.
Vests?
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
I still don't know why this fucking guy is here. Why is this guy here? Why is he testifying? What is his value? What do we care? I mean, we know the police found the Crumbleys here. Why do we need him to be like, yeah, I called 911?
Do you remember what it said on their vest?
No, but I know U.S. Marshals were there
Okay.
at some time.
And how do you know that?
Because they told me.
All right. The people you spoke to, though, what law enforcement agency at the first 2 or 3 cars that
I
arrived?
assume they were.
Okay. At some point, did you go back into your unit?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
That night, when was it?
Sometime between now and there was a time where an officer took me to like a central command center area that they set up a couple blocks away. But they told me to hang out in the office sometimes. I sat there for a little bit. I stepped outside for a little bit. Generally, kind of like floating between outside and.
Okay. When you were in your unit, could you hear any sounds?
Yeah, generally I can hear quite a bit. It's just the windows. The half of the walls are just windows.
Okay.
And then all the walls. It's just 2 pieces of drywall, no insulation. So generally, you can hear that people are in the building.
All right, and that evening, did you see any searches conducted?
Yes.
All right, and was there one officer or more than one? How many were in the building, if you know?
10.
Okay, and were they silent or were they talking?
No, they were talking.
Okay, so they were making a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Okay, and you, at that time, did you have any idea where this individual was by the car?
No. So they asked me. I didn't think they were at all involved in entering the building or not. I would have thought that they, because they just asked me what I think, and I was like, they definitely would have taken off.
Okay.
So they had, essentially a perimeter. I was standing with an officer, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like we're scouting out the surroundings and whatnot." So I, at the time, if you would have asked me if they were in the building, I would have told you 100% no way.
But you didn't see them go anywhere?
Nope.
You just thought they would be running?
Yeah, I didn't think there was a situation where they would have been able to access the building without the fob.
I see. At some point, the Crumbleys were apprehended. Were you there?
I was at the command center thing that I described earlier at the time.
Okay, so did you observe searches just in the house, or were you aware that there was searching going on in the area?
No.
Tammy says you sent a super chat and several people sent you hate messages, not the super chat. Who said you sent hate messages? Toller's telling me I could find and read the memo. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to hate people who super chat. So that's not cool. Could my mods please look into that issue if they have time from yesterday and see what that's all about and bring it to my attention, please, if there's something there. Thank you. That's not cool.
I was just aware that there were searches going on in the office building.
Okay, and did you return to your office that night?
Well, I had to get my car. I don't know if I entered my office afterwards.
Okay.
Oh wait, I did walk into the office.
My chat can get testy. We try to avoid that.
All right. Do you know if that was before or after they were apprehended?
That was after. I was not there during the apprehension. One of the officers, when we were sitting at the command center, was like, "Here they go," and then took me to the office.
And did you recognize anything about either one of the individuals?
I never saw the individuals.
Okay.
I only saw a car, a squad car leave.
Okay, I appreciate that. Do you remember what time that was, or when you arrived home that night?
Late, maybe 2 or 3 a.m.
In the morning?
It was a couple hours, yes.
Okay. At some point, did that mattress reappear?
Yes. So afterwards, I don't know if it was the same day or the following day, but the mattress was back into the hallway, and there was a bit of a tangle as to what happened with it after. Somebody had placed it in front of the artist's door at a time, and then it got moved back to the center and kind of went back and forth because I don't know whose it was, but I assumed they didn't want it after what had happened. So I don't know where it is now, but it was generally floating around the office building for a couple days afterwards.
Okay. Thank you, Luke.
Yep.
Thank you, Tammy, for the Venmo. Very much appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is Shannon. I'm going to ask you some questions. If I confuse you in any way or ask a bad question, can you please let me know?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I just want to go back. You're a tenant in the building. Your business is in that building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there are other businesses in that building.
Yes.
It is not in any way, shape, or form an abandoned building.
That's correct.
Now, you were testifying about how you have cars that you store in the building. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, the court has to make a clear record of yes
Sure.
or no, so they can't record mm-hms, but
Okay.
I knew it.
Yes.
Okay, so you have cars that you don't want people to see that occasionally you have over at your place of business, correct?
That's correct.
So at night, if you have a nice car, you actually put it into the building so that people out in the parking lot can't just see it out and about.
Yes, though I would say I'm very particular about my cars. I would say that generally people don't think like that.
Okay, but if you're thinking like that and you want to make sure people don't see your cars, you know if you put them in the building, they're safer.
That's correct. It's in my my unit specifically, so I have a garage unit that I pull the car into because technically it's still in public view by the other tenants if I were to just park the car. And we aren't allowed to park our car in this space generally. I only use it for my specific unit.
Okay, I see. And on that date, it's fair to say no one asks you, hey, can somebody put their car in your private space in the building, correct?
Correct.
Now, you testified that when you saw the person out in the parking lot, they were sitting outside of their car. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you even walked over with your flashlight, that person didn't get up and run away, anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Could you tell what that person was doing?
No. Just sitting.
If I told you they were smoking cigarettes, do you recall seeing that?
No.
So they stayed sitting even when they saw you with the flashlight out there?
That's correct.
And after they saw you with the flashlight, we saw in the video, you went back in playing it cool, correct?
Yes.
And that person appears to have walked back into the building as well.
Yes.
You weren't aware that they walked back in the building, but we can see now on the tape that that's what happened.
Correct.
And you testified that when you could see the person out by the car, they could also see you, correct?
Not particularly. If they were sitting behind the car, like I mentioned, there's a chance they couldn't have met direct eye contact with me coming out of the building.
So they may have seen you or may not have.
Correct.
Now, you testified too that when this was all unfolding, you put yourself in the most secure spot in your space, in your tenant space, correct?
Yes.
You went into your office and felt like you needed to hide out in the most safe place you could find.
I wanted to be as far away from my doors as possible, given the instance somebody perhaps would enter or hear me or anything.
And from what you knew about this case, there is this statewide manhunt for Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley.
That's correct.
And
Thank you,
from
Stacy,
what
for the
you
Venmo.
knew,
Appreciate it very much. Thank you very
Law
much.
enforcement, the marshals, the border patrol, sheriff's department, law enforcement around the state are looking for the Crumbleys, correct?
I would say my extent of who was looking for them was only to the actual poster that I saw.
Okay.
I wasn't particularly familiar with the gravity of the situation.
You were familiar that it was important, though, because when you saw them, you obviously knew, I need to call 911 and
That's
make
correct.
sure to report this.
Yes.
And if anything, you were shocked that you ended up seeing their vehicle at your place of business.
Yes.
Now, when you saw people coming, you testified that a lot of law enforcement came in with lots of guns. Is that correct?
After identifying the car.
After identifying the car.
Firstly, just an officer or two showed up.
Okay, so an officer or two showed up. Did they have guns?
No.
Okay, when were there lots of guns?
I assume they did have a handgun.
Yeah.
As officers do. Though I wouldn't see the arrival of people with any rifles or anything like that until after that was confirmed.
Okay, so after law enforcement got there is when you see law enforcement coming in with rifles, guns, vests, things like that.
Yes.
Now, the cameras you testified about on the outside of the building, there was one camera that you said, oh, I didn't even know we had a camera there. Do you recall testifying to that?
Yes.
There are many other cameras on the outside of the building that are visible to anyone in the parking lot, correct?
Yes, I would say they're not, out there like you would be like, oh, look at those cameras. But there are cameras there. If you look around, you'll find them.
So if you're in the parking lot and you look at the building, you can see that there's different cameras on the building.
Yes.
And there's a number of cameras on the building.
There are, so including this one, there are two on that side of the parking lot. 2 small white cameras, and then perhaps one on the front. I don't know if there are any other outside of the building. To my knowledge, that's the extent of the cameras that I know.
You testified that there was no way you could imagine you were pretty much 100% sure to yourself that Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley, while they may have been there, were not in the building, correct?
That's correct.
And you testified you would have thought they would have taken off and run, correct?
Correct.
If they were smarter criminals, they would have taken off and run.
Your Honor, I'm not sure she wants me to answer that, but it's not an appropriate question. He doesn't know how smart of criminals
Excuse me,
they
I'm
were.
going to just withdraw the question.
Okay, well, that would cause him to stop.
Thank you, Lynn, for the super chat, or apologize for the
So obviously you reported
Venmo.
that
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much, Lynn, for $30 Venmo.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Hope, for the $20 Venmo. Thank you very much, Stacy, for the $8 Venmo. Tammy, thank you very much for the $50 Venmo. Appreciate it all. Thank you very, very much. Venmo, of course, does take a smaller percentage than YouTube, so it is appreciated.
Were you, when you were hiding in your office, about in that corner, were you hiding from law enforcement?
No.
Who were you hiding from?
Well, so I sat in that corner specifically because I thought it was the most far away from the windows. In the instance somebody would hear something out there, or if something really bad were to happen, if somebody was armed or something, could have shot through a window.
But when you saw law enforcement...
I was already outside right when law enforcement arrived.
Right, so you weren't afraid of the law enforcement?
No.
Okay, thank you. And you be excused, Your Honor?
Yes, you can step down.
Thank you.
Who's next witness?
We have Corporal David Shaw in the hallway.
Yeah, I still have no idea why this witness testified. I don't understand the point of this witness. I don't know why this witness testified. This witness was pointless. I don't get it. This witness spotted the car, called 911. Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Why did we go through that? This witness is, all right, never mind.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about you is a true self you got?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you please step up and have a seat? And then would you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
My name is David Shaw, S-H-A-W. First name is David, D-A-V-I-D.
Go ahead, prosecutor.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to speak really as loud as you can, okay? Okay. How are you employed?
I'm employed with the Detroit Police Department.
Okay, and what do you do there?
I'm assigned to the Special Response Team, which is the city's SWAT team.
The SWAT team?
Yep.
Okay. How long have you been a police officer?
For 13 years.
And what's your rank right now?
Corporal.
Corporal. Okay, so I'm not familiar with Detroit Police and their ranking structure. Tell me what that means.
So corporal is essentially would be a field training officer or a trainer of other police officers. Essentially.
Okay. And how long have you been assigned to the City of Detroit Special Response Team?
For approximately.
Venmo takes 3% plus 30 cents, I think. And YouTube takes 30%, so it's a much better deal. Yeah, Venmo, Stripe, and PayPal are all about the same, give or take. They're all about 3% plus, I think, 30 cents, or maybe it's plus $1.30. So yeah, they're all 3% more or less. YouTube takes 30%. Twitch takes 30%. Zelle is free, so Zelle takes 0. Yeah, so there you go.
10 years.
10 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And where did you work prior to that?
I worked on Eastern District, which is like a constant crash.
Okay, so would that be patrol officer?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us, Jerry, please, what are some of the responsibilities of a member of the Detroit Police Special Response Team?
The Special Response Team serves high-risk search warrants, usually for homicide suspects, or dangerous people, and then we also do barricaded gunmen, so get domestic violence and someone barricaded in the house. They don't want to come out. Police officers will call us and we respond to that scene.
Okay. So you've had specific training when it comes to executing search warrants and arrest warrants?
Correct.
Okay. So how many, we would call this a raid. Would that be right? Fair?
That's fair.
Okay. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yep.
Okay. So how many times have you executed either a search warrant or an arrest warrant?
I don't know the number off the top of my head. I mean,
Give us the ballpark if you can.
probably hundreds. I know I have 173 barricaded gunmen incidents I've dealt with.
173 barricaded gunmen alone?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and then on top of that, the search warrants, I don't keep track of that off the top of my head, but I would say more than 200. easily.
Okay. So you've been doing this for about a decade?
Correct.
And is this the routine practice of the Detroit Police Special Response Team?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now I want to direct your attention to Friday, December the 3rd, 2021, approximately 11:30 p.m.
Okay.
Do you recall that date and time?
I do.
Okay. And did you have occasion to be recalled to 1111 Bellevue in the city of Detroit?
Yep. Got recalled for a search for a wanted fugitive. That was the recall we got. So that was the only information I got prior to getting there.
Okay. Now, when I say recall, what does that mean?
So our commander will call our lieutenant, who then texts our sergeants, and they send out a text message to our whole team that says, "Come back to the base or respond to this particular address." In this case, it was respond to this area. And once I got there, it was given more information at that time.
Okay. So I take it 11:30 at night on that Friday night, you weren't in the office itself. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that was
Okay. So when you're recalled, you're always on call, but you're called to meeting?
correct.
Okay. So as a member of the special response team, is it fair to say that you're always on call?
Always on call.
Always on call. Okay. So approximately what time did you arrive at that location?
I'm usually pretty quick. That's roughly 20 minutes from my house, maybe 25 minutes before I got to that scene.
Okay. So if you got the message about 11:30, would it be fair to say you arrived before midnight?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now what type of building is at that location?
There's a large, I want to call it maybe an industrial type building.
If I showed you some pictures, would that help?
Yeah.
So we have people's 348, 349, and 351 for this witness.
348 through 351.
349 and 351.
We have no objection to those.
Right, 348. So 348, 349,
And 351.
351, not 350.
Correct. That's who this witness. Sir, on the screen in front of you, can you see the People's Admitted Exhibit 348?
I do.
Okay. And what am I looking at in this photograph here?
It looks like an industrial building to me.
Okay, so this is the address 1111 Bellevue in the city of Detroit?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. And this is, I'm sorry. This is People's Admitted 349. This is the same building?
Looks to be, yes, sir.
Okay. And this is People's 351. Again, photograph of 1111 Bellevue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you arrived, sir, tell me what you saw, your initial observations.
There's a ton of police cars initially. With this particular incident, there wasn't anywhere to set up on like a barricade gunman would be, so I kind of waited until we had more officers show up to the scene prior to making entry into the building.
Okay. So let me stop you right there. You said a ton of officers are already in scene. Was that your team members or were other officers?
There was other people. So there's, I couldn't tell you what agencies or what units were there, but it was more than just SRT.
Okay, so it's more than Detroit Police Special Response. Was it also, more than just Detroit police officers as well?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you. I didn't see any other city cars, but there was a lot of Detroit police cars, and then as we started showing up, this was prior to making entry. Once we were in the building, there was multiple agencies, and multiple tactical teams, or at least one other tactical team that we ended up running into while we were clearing.
Okay. So, sir, tell me, you arrived a little before midnight, you said, and at that point, were your team members already there?
No, I was the first one there. I talked with I believe it was a commander or a lieutenant that was on the scene already. He kind of gave me a rundown of what was going on, and we kind of formed a plan and waited for other guys to get there before he made entry to the facility.
So you were recalled from your home, you said?
Correct.
Okay. Were you wearing the uniform you're wearing today?
No, sir.
Tell me what you were wearing.
It's essentially an unmarked uniform, but it's a black tactical shirt, which allows me to apply patches to each shoulder, so I'm able to identify myself as a Detroit police officer. Then I have a heavy vest on that says police across the chest.
Heavy vest is what?
It's a bulletproof ballistic vest.
Okay.
Ooh, my prescription's ready.
Heavy
Nice.
on the inside for protection from firearms. Helmet, usually a mask. At this time it's pretty cold, so I usually do wear a face covering. Also have my badge on, my rig that I use for my gun belt, and that's essentially everything's all black though, except for the police and white lettering across the
Okay,
chest.
and that's the standard uniform of the Detroit Police Special Response Team?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once you met with the other team members and a plan was organized, what happened next?
We actually made entry into this building where there was a ton of officers there already.
Give us an idea of how many.
On the main floor, when we first went through the front door, there was, say, roughly 20 people in there, just in the initial spot.
Just in the main entryway?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were officers that were dressed kind of plain clothes. Some guys that maybe they're dressed like DFAT, which would be like jeans and a shirt, but a vest that identifies them as police.
What's DFAT?
The Detroit's Fugitive Apprehension Team.
Okay.
And there was other, like I said, other officers there that looked to be like a tactical team.
Okay. So you weren't the only special response team on the scene?
I wouldn't say no.
All right. And we've already heard testimony that this building had 3 floors to it. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay. So tell us, sir, what is the first thing that the Detroit Police Department Special Response Team did?
So after making entry, we started searching the main floor kind of slowly. I know we did breach 1 or 2 doors on the initial entry. There's a room right to our right when we went into the door. We had to breach a double door. We breached that one. And
Let me stop you right there. Breach, what does that mean?
We used a ram, and a manual breach is you're breaking the door open, you're defeating the locking mechanism.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
So that was on the first floor of this building?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so who used the ram? Was it you or another member?
It was another member.
Okay. So describe to us what happens when you use the breach to defeat a locking mechanism.
You're essentially banging a 35-pound metal ram against the door until it opens.
Until it opens? Okay.
Yeah.
And were you able to breach that door in this particular instance?
Yes.
Okay. And what was found in that room, if you recall?
Nothing. It actually ended up wrapping around to another door. We ended up going out that door and back into the hallway that we were in, but we had cleared that room and the conjoining room before we went back out to the hallway.
Okay. Now, at some point, was Detroit Police Department's Special Response Team coordinating with other tactical units on scene?
I believe my commander was, or my sergeant. I was not personally.
That's fair.
But I couldn't. I would assume they were.
Okay. So just walk us through then where your particular team went that evening.
We started on the main floor, and we were given information that the 2 wanted fugitives went up to the second floor and never returned back downstairs. So that kind of forced our way. That kind of pushed us to the second floor.
Were other officers on the second floor already?
Correct. Yes, and that's when we ran into that second tactical team who said they had cleared the second floor. They cleared all the open doors.
Okay.
So we ended up clearing the closed doors as much as we could. At some point, somebody gained access to a ring and keys, and we were opening the closed door, locked doors with the keys.
Okay. Now, at this point in time, when the tactical units were inside the building, were there other police officers on the exterior of the building?
Yeah, there was police everywhere. I would assume. I'd be guessing at this point, but I would bet there was police on the perimeter of the building.
Okay. And you said police everywhere?
Yeah.
Were there emergency lights activated in vehicles?
I'm not 100% sure with that.
That's okay. Was it just the tactical units then inside the building at this point?
There was K-9 officers as well.
K-9 as well?
We utilized K-9 officers on a canine officer on the second floor who checked each door prior to us opening it with the dog, and we never obviously got any hits from the dog on the second floor.
Okay. And to your knowledge, were there other teams on the third floor at this point in time as well?
I'm not 100% sure.
That's fair. Where did you go after the second floor was cleared?
If I'm not mistaken, I think we went up to the third floor before returning back down to the main floor.
Okay. So at some point in time, you and your team returned back to the first floor.
Correct.
Okay. And why did you do that?
At some point, one of my supervisors was given information that the room the wanted fugitives were supposed to be in was on the first floor. At some point, someone asked if it had already been cleared, and which they said no. So, okay, so we went back down directly to that room.
Okay, and you were given a set of keys for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you recall who gave you the keys?
I never got the keys. Somebody opened the door for me. I was just number one into that room.
Okay, so tell me, that suite in particular, if I told you it was suite 130, would that sound right to you?
Yeah.
Okay. That suite in particular, what's the proximity from that location to the location where you used the 35-pound ram to kick in the door?
It's on the same floor, on the same side of the building. If I had to guess, maybe 10 or 15 feet away.
Okay.
That.
All right. Now, at this point in time, were the Detroit Police Department Special Response Team equipped with body-worn cameras?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was yours activated that night?
Yes, sir.
Now, how long would you say that your particular team was on this location from the time you arrived to the time that you entered suite 130?
I guess maybe an hour, hour and a half.
Okay.
2 hours tops, but I'd be guessing at this point.
That's okay. Just an estimate, that's all we're asking.
Yep.
And during that hour, hour and a half, up to 2 hours, were other tactical teams also clearing other rooms?
Yes, sir.
Now, your body-worn camera would have a date and time stamp on it, if you know.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is going to be People's 347. I don't believe there's an objection.
No, there's not. We stipulate to the admission.
347 is admitted.
Let me just stop it for a second to confirm. This is December the 4th, 2021 at 1:33 in the morning.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is camera from your body-worn camera?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell us quickly, where is that camera affixed on your uniform?
I have it affixed to the right side of my chest, just underneath my magazine carriers.
Okay.
I have a lot of stuff here, but it's just a space pretty much right underneath my right arm.
We see a lot of stuff here. We're talking about the tactical vest you described?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Let me see those hands. Let me see those fucking hands. One person at a time. Let me see those hands. Yep. Let me see hands. Hands. Keep those hands where they're at. One hand. Wiggle hands. Turn around. On your stomach. Get on your fucking stomach. Hands behind your head. Good. Stand up. Stand up. What's your name? James Williams. Yep. Stay there. Let's walk up. Oh, yep. Can I move? We'll go this mattress. Ready? These are yours. Those are mine. Those are mine. I'm going to put your glasses on. Look at it. Where are you almost? See something. Hold on, take me back.
I guess this shows evasion. I mean, showing where they were kept, like it's not a hotel room. Does it seem more like they were trying to evade, right, as opposed to just being on the lowdown? So if they'd just been in a hotel room somewhere trying to get away from attention, as opposed to being in the middle of like its arts and crafts store, this looks more like a purposeful attempt to evade, and more like a purposeful attempt to hide from the police than the alternative. So I suppose that's some evidence leading to the idea that they were fleeing, which leads to the concept of that it evinces guilt because they're trying to flee. So there's something in there somewhere. Yeah, okay. Yeah, if they were trying, yeah, but yeah, it's like, but if they're simply trying to like avoid the press, if they're simply trying to avoid the press and simply trying to not be at their house because it was too hot, too dangerous, and they didn't want to go to family member for the same reason, then presumably they just check into a hotel somewhere. But the fact that they're in an art store is more suggestive of, it's more suggestive, of course, nothing's dispositive, that's not how trials work. It's more suggestive of trying to evade law enforcement. It's more suggestive of trying to flee, and therefore more suggestive of evincing guilt. So yeah.
No, double it. Kind of double it. This is not clear. Everyone out. This is still an arrest. Out. We got double check for weapons, so we're not. This is still not.
And sir, we overheard an officer say with the double check for weapons, it's not the special response team's function to actually search for evidentiary items just for weapons.
Her attorney said they were on vacation.
It's more of a safety search. Before we let anybody into this room, we're going to make sure we know where weapons are and make sure they're secure before anybody else coming from the public or not from our team is in that room.
Okay. And there were no weapons located in this search?
I did not find any weapons.
Okay. But an actual search of this location will be conducted by members of the crime scene unit. Would that be right?
Sure. Yes, sir.
Listen.
Sir, I stopped at 1:37 and 1:37 a.m. 41 seconds. Where my cursor is, this is a window.
Oh yes.
Okay, and those are the windows we saw in the photographs earlier admitted that face the parking lot.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, do you even know the identities of the individuals, if you recall?
I believe before we made entry, we were given information that we were looking for these particular people.
Okay. So it's James and Jennifer Crumbley.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fair to say it was a Detroit Police Department law enforcement investigation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you were given the information that the fugitives could have been there.
Yes, sir.
Once James and Jennifer Crumbley were taken from this location, were they turned over to members of Oakland County?
Turned over to, I believe, our DFAT unit right at the door to this room.
Okay.
And that was that's when we as a team released custody to those.
All right, but that wouldn't have been your function. What happened with them after?
Right now.
Okay. Now, from the video, it depicts that they were found on a mattress on the floor of this suite. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have testified that you used a ram to breach a door about 10 or 15 feet away from the entry door to this suite?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was before that you made entry into this particular room?
That was initially when we first made entry into this building, maybe an hour prior to that.
Okay. And then this arrest occurred after teams, other tactical units, had already searched floors 2 and 3 as well as other rooms in floor 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is after all of those officers were on scene?
Yes, sir.
Now, in your experience in 10 years with special response, you said you've executed, if you could even ballpark, hundreds of arrest warrants. Was that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In your experience, have you caught anyone asleep before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what was your impression if James and Jennifer Crumbley were asleep or not when you entered the room?
Your Honor, I would object. This calls for speculation. The video speaks for itself, and really the appropriate person to ask is Mrs. Crumbley if she was asleep.
Okay.
Judge, I think the foundation's been laid that he's been on hundreds of these executions.
He hasn't seen Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley sleep 100 times.
Okay, well, I think he can describe exactly what he saw.
Sure.
I mean, if I close my eyes right now, I don't know if I'm asleep or not. I mean, I probably am, but, you know.
Go ahead, sir.
But you don't know if someone's asleep just because their eyes are closed.
I'm just asking his impression.
Are his eyes closed? Were their eyes closed? Were they moving or not moving? Like, you know, you can ask those types of questions.
Paint the picture for us what you perceived.
As I made entry, I see two people laying on a mattress. If I'm not mistaken, they're facing each other, not moving, not making a sound.
Okay. And that's after your entire team entered the suite?
Correct.
Okay. And after the door was breached 15 feet away?
Yes, sir.
I have nothing.
Cross.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In the video, after you guys find the people on the mattress, there's a person that's making yelling noises. Are you aware of who is yelling?
It would be Mr. James Crumbley.
And did you see or observe Mrs. Crumbley making any noises?
I did not.
There's a little bit of conversation we hear on the video about eyeglasses.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
And that was Mrs. Crumbley asking if she could please have her eyeglasses.
Okay.
Is that fair?
To be honest, looking back at it, watching the video, I thought it was Mr. Crumbley saying that was his glasses on the mattress. And I just watched the video, so I may be mistaken.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
None.
Okay, you can step down and you're excused. The jurors' lunches are here. So unless you had someone super short.
I'm sorry, Judge. The jurors' lunches are here?
Yeah, if you had a super short witness, we'd take it now. If not, can you tell me who the witness next
No,
is?
but we could rest today, Judge. So
Okay.
we are going to meet with the remaining witnesses we have. We'll decide how many more we need to put on. So counsel has requested to know, and I believe she should be prepared to begin her case today if she chooses to present one.
Your Honor, I am going to present one, but I am not prepared as I've emailed the court a million
Okay, you could be
times.
prepared to present your case, if any, tomorrow morning. If the prosecution rests, I want to reiterate that the defense doesn't have to do anything. Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Crumbley can sit here and play chess if they'd like, all right? They don't have to do anything, but if they choose to do so, you can do it tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Pardon me, Your Honor. He left his phone.
Oh, okay, all
Uh-oh.
right. Okay, so I'm gonna have you come back at 1:45. Okay, your lunches are here. Please don't discuss the case with anyone, with each other.
All right, Uncivil gets a break for an hour. Uncivil's excited.
Post anything. Don't read any news and don't look at any TV about the case. All right.
All rise for the jury.
Excellent. All right, so cool. That takes us through this morning's session. Outstanding. All right, so let me go ahead and set up this afternoon, and while I'm doing that, if you have any final thoughts or comments, I will take them as I'm setting up this afternoon stream. So anyone have any thoughts or comments they'd like to add to the party, or just talking about anything for that matter? I'll reiterate one point, by the way, just because I think somewhat it gets lost a little bit sometimes, because people sometimes say things like, does this prove something, or does this prove another thing? And that's very, very rare in trial. It's unusual to have a piece of evidence that proves something. So more to the point you're building. And so the question isn't, does it prove this? The question is relevance. Relevance is, does it make it more or less likely? That's all it needs to do is to move the needle any degree. Any degree. Does it make it more or less likely? And so I think it's relevant, and I think it helps the case of the prosecution. So that's all you need, right? And I'm not saying anything beyond that. I think people misread me sometimes, or think I say things I don't. It's like, well, I was like, oh yeah, this helps the prosecution, so you think they're guilty? I'm like, I didn't say that. You know, it's like, I think it helps lean in that direction. It makes it more likely. So you're saying you're convinced beyond a reasonable doubt? Didn't say that either. It's like, you know, sometimes I think people misread me. They overextend what I say. They don't appreciate the nuance of which I say it. It's annoying sometimes. What can you do? What elements does the prosecution need to get to involuntary manslaughter? In principle, that they recklessly disregarded a perceivable threat that caused the death of another. And so you have sort of two problems, that it was perceivable and that it caused. So the recklessness is sort of there, the death is sort of there, and then we're fighting over the perceivability of it, and we're fighting over the causation of it. And thank you for the congratulations on 128,000. Isn't this a precedent-setting trial? It might well be. It's very possible. I've discussed it many times. Yes, I'm concerned. I disagreed with the Court of Appeals. I'm not sure that this is legally tenable. I've expressed that concern, right? So I move right past fact into law. That's what law is all about, right? It's like assuming everything the prosecution said is true. Can a jury find them guilty? Is that possible? I'm not sure it is possible. And the reason it's not possible is from a dearth of facts. The reason it's not possible, if it's not possible, is because the law doesn't support it. It's legally untenable. The Court of Appeals disagrees with me. I continue to have concerns. How are the actions after the incident relevant? I tried to say earlier, it evinces consciousness of guilt. It could be understood by a jury to evince a consciousness of guilt. The actions they took to leave their home and choose to hide in a place like a cot in a random art shop could be understood by a jury to evince consciousness of guilt. That's how it's relevant. Has his dad had his trial yet? No. Had I had time to watch the Miller hearing? You mean from the underlying Ethan Crumbley case? No. Nor is it particularly important to the issues we have at hand. It's not important. I don't think it's actually important. I think the fact that he was charged as a adult actually makes it harder for the state here, not easier. So I don't think it matters. Could they have really known, or should they have known? See, that's where I sort of have a problem. That it's perceivable. That's where I sort of get off the train. I'm like, I don't know that a jury can find that. The Court of Appeals disagrees with me. I have questions for the Court of Appeals. Are there extra charges for the fleeing? No. It's just evident it evinces guilt for this. It doesn't have to be a charge unto itself. It just evinces consciousness of guilt. The fact that you're fleeing suggests that you have a guilty mind. It suggests that you are conscious of your own guilt, because an innocent person wouldn't flee. So you must think you're guilty. It evinces consciousness. It's suggestive. Consciousness of guilt is considered by a jury? Hell yes. 100%. Hell yes. Yep. Juries eat that shit up. Juries eat that shit up, man. Every spouse should be charged with the crime of spouse? Maybe. Possibly. The scope of how this will expand in the future has been a serious concern of mine. We've discussed many times. Yes, I have serious reservations about a guilty finding in this. As a matter of law, I have concerns, and I'm very concerned about what happens next. You don't have to convince me. You don't have to convince me. I'm already convinced. I already am convinced. I have concerns. There's a difference between thinking I'm guilty and people are going to think I'm guilty. Good luck explaining that difference to a jury. You know what I mean? Good luck explaining that difference to a jury. Remember, guys, this is a jury of people. And just think how people think in general. People think, well, if I was innocent, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. You know, if I was innocent, I wouldn't do X. I wouldn't do Y. Blah, blah, blah. Right? So the fact that they did that must mean they're guilty. You know? So yeah, just remember how people think. The average, ordinary, common person, the man off the street, how do they think? Yeah. So you're going to try to tell the ordinary, average person off the street there's a difference between you thinking you're guilty and you thinking other people will think you're guilty? Good fucking luck. Good fucking luck is what I say to that, right? Yeah, the bus stop people. Exactly. The ordinary, average person on the street. You're going to explain that distinction to them? I don't know, man. Jurors are humans and may follow social pressure and not necessarily follow the law. That's true too. Although it's even hard for me to follow the law in this particular instance. I suppose it's not hard in so much as the Court of Appeals has told me what the law is. I just disagree with the Court of Appeals. Or at least have concerns about the Court of Appeals. So maybe it's a softer disagreement. Because I'm like, I don't know what happens next. Can this be taken to civil court? For civil liability is a completely separate issue. Yeah, can these people be held responsibly civilly is an entirely different issue. I assume the answer to that question is yes. No parent wants to believe their child could do it, so good luck proving they knew it was going to happen. Everything is obvious in retrospect, my friend. Everything is obvious in retrospect. Yeah, I agree with you. That's the problem. But the jury's not going to agree with you, and you know the jury's not going to agree with you. You know the jury's not going to agree with you. Think what the ordinary person would say. Because everyone thinks that everyone's hindsight is 20/20, and they forget that it's hindsight, right? So the jury's going to think, well, their child did this horrible, horrible thing. How could they not see it coming? And suddenly it's on you to sort of prove that you couldn't see it coming. Right? I agree they couldn't see it coming. But everyone's like, look at this horrible, horrible thing their child did. How could they not see it's coming? That's what the reasonable person's going to think. You know that's what the reasonable person's going to think. You absolutely know that's what the reasonable person's going to think. Don't delude yourself. Don't delude yourself. Some children are dead. Let's keep this even simpler. Children are dead. They have been shot and killed and murdered. The reasonably ordinary, prudent person probably wants to, burn everything down to the ground. They want to hold everyone responsible who's even vaguely close to the situation. I mean, that's sort of an ordinary, normal understanding, right? An ordinary, normal person's probably, I mean, one of their reactions is going to be a very visceral sense of anger. I am not happy about this. I am not happy that the 4 children have been murdered and shot in the school. This displeases me. I am not happy about this situation. I'd like to string everyone up who's even vaguely related to this and string them up high. That is a reaction that the reasonably prudent person might have. So, you know. Yeah. So the defense has some work to do to get past all that. It's a jury of your peers. It's a jury of laymen. It's a jury of 12 average people off the street. What do they think? How do they think? Yeah. Yeah. They receive their pound of flesh? Oh, you think they're satisfied with the pound? Is that what you think? You think the jury is satisfied with their pound of flesh because they got the conviction of Ethan? Oh yeah, we're satisfied. We got our pound of flesh. Ethan's been held convicted. Okay, we're all done here. Dusting off our hands. Wow, we're satisfied. Really? You think the jury's bloodlust is? You think the jury's or society's bloodlust is done? I'm gonna press X to doubt on that one, big time. You're a reasonable average person. And I disagree with you. Okay, noted. You know, but what's the amalgamation of reasonably average people? Again, you may disagree with me, but it's 12 random people off the street. 12 random people off the street. How do they think? And if you're saying to me that 12 reasonable people off the street can't think the way that I'm describing, then we have a disagreement. I'm not saying what you think as a reasonable person. I'm not even saying that you're not a reasonable person. I'm not making that claim, right? I'm making a much more specific claim. I'm not saying that you're not a reasonable person. I'm not saying that you're not a reasonable person for not thinking that way. I am saying that I think you're delusional if you think that 12 random people taken off the street wouldn't think that way. I'm saying you're delusional if you don't think 12 random people would potentially think along the lines I'm describing. That's my claim. Yeah. I don't think it's a poll because I don't think the poll would tell me what I want to know. I don't think the poll would tell me what I want to know. So I don't know about a poll in this one. You think the average person can see you never know what a person's going to do? I just don't think people think that way. I think everyone has hindsight 20/20, and once they do, it's very hard to forget it. If you ask a person, can you predict what's going to happen tomorrow? A reasonable person will say no. But if you ask them the day after that, could they have seen it coming? The answer is going to be yes. I know that those are inherently contradictory answers. I understand they're inherently contradictory answers. But, you know, especially if it's a bold thing, right? Can you see what's going to happen tomorrow? No. Could you have seen what was going to happen yesterday? Yes. I think that those answers are very, very possible, even though they're cognitively dissident. Because people don't recognize the cognitive dissonance, because the ordinary average person is not a deep critical thinker. They just simply see horrible thing happen. Of course it was foreseeable. Of course you could see that. How could anyone not see it? Even though, if you had asked them the day before, no one could see that coming. Of course everyone could see that coming. Are those answers inherently contradictory? No one could possibly see this coming. Of course anyone could see this coming. Are those inherently contradictory? You bet your ass. Is it what a reasonable juror might think? Yeah, because people don't recognize their bias. People don't recognize that people don't recognize that they're thinking in hindsight Everything's obvious in hindsight. People don't recognize that. So, yeah. So the defense has got some work to do. The school didn't? Yeah, but the school's not on trial. The school's not on trial, so they have not been offered the school official's sacrificial lamb. So if the school was on trial, or people in the school were on trial, would the jury think that? They might very well. But since, they're not available, we'll take anyone we can get. Would the jury convict if people at the school were on trial? Maybe. Does that really have anything to do with what we're doing now? Not really, no. Yeah. How is believing obvious contradictions reasonable? Because people don't recognize that they have contradictions. People don't realize it. People walk through their mind all the time without realizing the contradictions in their mind. The average ordinary person, unfortunately, is not particularly self-aware. The ordinary average person, remember, the ordinary average person is the man on the street. Some of them are not very self-aware. Some of them might be particularly well aware. What is the average? What is the average ordinary person? The average person off the street. Are they particularly self-aware? Probably not. Are they particularly self-aware? No. Did they really think out everything they think? Do they really think all the contradictions through? Are they aware of all the contradictions in their mind? No. Have you ever seen an interview with anyone on the street, like ever? And people who disagree with them ask them like the most basic questions and they can't answer them? Have you ever seen these videos? They're very popular on the right in particular. Have you ever seen a right-wing person conduct what at least I would perceive is a completely normal interview of a person on the left, and they give a statement, and then the person on the right asks them a foundational question, and they have no fucking clue? They have no idea what they're talking about? They have not given it any thought whatsoever? Is it just me? Am I the only one who's seen these things? People off the street are not particularly self-critical. They're not particularly self-aware. People off the street believe very contradictory things and they don't recognize the contradiction. People are not particularly why am I mansplaining what an ordinary person is? You guys are treating me like these are completely foreign concepts. I've never heard this before. It's like, why am I explaining this to you? Why am I explaining this to you? You seem incredulous. You seem incredulous that people can think this way. It's like, have you met the ordinary person? Seriously, have you met the ordinary person? Have you had conversations at all, ever, with just people walking down the street? Has it ever occurred to you, or ever been the case that you've ever had a conversation with a complete stranger and thought to yourself, this guy's a complete idiot? Has that never happened to you before, ever? What questions are you guys asking me? These seem odd questions to me. Because I go off a tangent, repeat the same sentence for 20 minutes? How do you defend this then? Well, I keep repeating it because you guys keep asking me the same question. I keep repeating it because I keep trying to explain it a different way. You guys ask me a question and then I explain it. And then you ask me the same question and I try to explain it a different way. And the words are going to be very similar because it's the same idea. But yeah, I keep repeating myself because you guys keep asking me. What else do you want me to do? What else do you expect me to do? I'm so confused. You ask me the same question, I'm going to give you basically the same answer. Why would my answer change because you asked me a second time? I'll try to use slightly different words. I'll try potentially to go about it a different way. I might pick a different analogy. I might try to approach the problem slightly differently. But yeah, it's going to be fundamentally the same answer because it's fundamentally the same question. Of course it's repetitive. What else do you want from me? Yeah. I guess you want a different answer, but that's the way I think. So I can't give you a different answer. You're countering my opinion. I appreciate that you're countering my opinion. And I'm like, I think you're wrong. You think I'm wrong. I think you're wrong. You say, here's my opinion. You're like, I'm wrong. I'm like, okay. Let me try to explain my opinion better. Let me try to justify my opinion better. Let me try to buttress my opinion better. Let me try to show you more evidence for my opinion. So I've tried to approach this a couple different ways. I've tried to go about it a couple ways to show you the basis of my opinion, the foundation of my opinion, the reason for my opinion. I've tried to show I've tried to show the facts behind it, tried to show the reasoning behind it. I don't know what else to do. Well, what I consider reasonable? Well, that's a pretty broad question, generally speaking. What would I consider the reasonable and sort of the ordinary person? Well, we've discussed that before. The man on the bus is definitionally the reasonable ordinary person by definition. So, by definition, the reasonably ordinary person is the man on the bus. That's who the reasonably ordinary person is. So, who is he? Well, we've discussed that before. What do we know about the man on the bus? What do we know about him? Particularly, of course, when this phrase was invented. This phrase was invented long before computers, long before the internet, long before smartphones. So, what do we know about the man on, or what kind of assumptions can we make about the man on the bus? What kind of assumptions can we make? Well, he knows how to get a copy of a bus schedule. Somehow, he knows how to get a copy of bus schedule. He knows where to find it and pick it up, or he knows what newspaper it's in, or he knows where to go look at the bus stop. He knows how to get a copy of the bus schedule. He knows how to tell time and what day of the week it is. He knows how to go to the bus stop. He knows how to get there. Remember, we don't have GPS. He knows how to get to the bus stop. He knows how to wait for the bus. He knows which bus is his, because typically bus stops serve multiple types of buses. Typically, it's not just one bus for one stop. So he knows which of the many buses are his bus. So he knows which bus to board. He knows how to get on the bus. He knows how to pay for the bus, either because he has exact change or he knows how to make change with the driver. You know? He knows how to sit on the bus and behave himself in a reasonably competent way. He knows when his bus stop is going to come. He knows how to signal for the bus to stop so it will stop. He knows how to get off the bus. He knows how to get from his bus stop to wherever it is he's trying to be. Once he gets there, he knows how to do whatever it is he was trying to do in the first place, whether that's working or shopping for groceries or whatever it is, or go to the park. So he knows how to, do those things. And then at the end of the day, he knows how to do everything again in reverse. He's not particularly poor. He's not particularly rich. He's not particularly dumb. He's not particularly smart. He's not particularly educated. He's the everyman. He knows how to do he knows how, when you actually break it down, what riding a bus takes, it actually is a lot of steps. We don't normally think about it, but when you actually think about what it takes to ride a bus, it's actually a lot of steps. It's actually a lot for a person to do, but every person does it easily. But it's still a lot when you break it down. But he knows how to do all those things. That's who it is. That is by definition the reasonably ordinary person. That's who it is. That guy. Probably blue collar. Manufacturing job. Works a line somewhere. possibly. If he were richer, if he were a banker or a lawyer, probably wouldn't be on the bus. Probably would just be driving his own car. So probably blue collar. You know, probably high school education. Went to work early. High school education, if that. Went to work early. Blue collar, assembly line, minor. Does a shift somewhere, comes home. That's probably who it is, that guy. You know? Especially, again, when this phrase was being invented. That's probably who the guy is, that guy. So that guy is, so the sort of ordinary, average, blue-collar machinist somewhere, the ordinary, average gas station attendant, the ordinary, average mechanic, that's your reasonable person, that guy. So ask how he thinks. Ask how he thinks. That's your reasonably prudent guy. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah. Probably doesn't know a lot about philosophy. Probably never heard the word philosophy. Machinists are not necessarily smart. They're skilled, which isn't necessarily the same thing. They can be smart, but they're not necessarily smart. They're skilled. They know their trade, which isn't the same thing as being smart. You don't have to be particularly smart to be skilled. Smart is about your ability to learn something, but not about your ability to do work. So, yeah. So the smart person, the smart person is fundamentally no better at doing a task, but he's more able to learn the task. And the smart person is more able to learn more tasks. And the smart person is more able to do a variety of tasks. So smartness is about ease of learning, variety of learning, speed of learning, but not about execution. So the smart person is no better than the not smart person at being a mechanic. Because once they're skilled, they're both equally skilled. And then it's just an issue of who can be skilled better, and the smart person is not necessarily any better than that. But the smart person is more able to adapt. The smart person is more able to deal with change. The smart person is more able to do other tasks. He's able to learn faster. But sort of rote activities, the machinist is kind of more rote. You don't have to be particularly smart for that. You can be well skilled, but it's not the same thing as being smart. I'm saying the jury cannot be critical thinkers. I'm saying the jury is not. I'm saying the prototypical reasonable man is not a critical thinker. No. The prototypical reasonable man is not a critical thinker. Or if he is, he's not very good at it. Yeah. There are different types of smart. Perhaps, but I was speaking about general IQ. I was speaking about smartness as a general category, which I thought was pretty obvious from the way I was describing it. I was talking about general IQ. All right. Yeah, the critical thinker also needs to put their ego aside. Yeah. One of the traits of a smart person, well, there is a bit of an ego problem of people in general, that they think other people think like them. That is a bit of a conceit that is true of many people, and it's really not better of smart people, and if anything, it's worse of smart people. The sense of ego, the sense, well, I'm a reasonable person, which you are. I mean, you are a reasonable person. If you're having this conversation with me, you're a reasonable person. I'm a reasonable person, therefore every reasonable person thinks like me. Have you seen how people vote? Have you seen how people have different opinions on like basically every issue of the day? Do you really think that everyone thinks like you? Yeah, so there is a bit of a conceit where it's like, oh, everyone thinks the way I do. Everyone processes this information the way I do. Well, I know. So you're saying I'm not reasonable? No, I'm not saying you're not reasonable. I'm just saying the average ordinary person isn't you. Yeah. Yeah. People prioritize differently. That's true too. Yeah. And people like different things than others, and that's sort of inescapable at the bottom line. There's preferences which can't be really argued against. It's hard to argue against a preference. I think people have a hard time convincing other people can reasonably believe something different when they believe. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. I've enjoyed our philosophical discussion. Go have lunch. I'll be on in 20 minutes. You guys took time for my lunch break. I'm mad at you guys. Grr. I'm mad at you. It's my fault though. I should have had boundaries. I should have had boundaries. All right. I'm going to sign off, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.